Salvete, amici Latine, and welcome to Second Form Latin, Lesson 10. Let's do our recitation. Surgite, recitemus. First, the first form recitation. Our noun endings. Ready? A, arum, is, as, is, us, o, I, orum, is, os, is, I, o, a, orum, is, a, is. Third, blank, is, ace, ibus, ace, ibus, blank, is, blank, a, ibus, a, ibus, us, ui, us, ibus, ibus, and ace, ace, arum, abus, ace, abus. Now, let's conjugate voco, vocari, vocavi, vocatus in all 6 tenses. Ready? Go. Voco, vocas, vocat, vocamus, vocatus, vocant, vocabam, vocabas, vocabat, vocabamus, vocabatus, vocabant, vocabo, vocabis, vocabit, vocabimus, vocabitus, vocabunt. Perfect system. Vocavi, vocavisi, vocavit, vocavimus, vocavisis, vocaverunt, vocaveram, vocaveras, vocaverat, vocaveramus, vocaveratus, vocaverant, vocavero, vocaveris, vocaverit, vocaverimus, vocaveritus, vocaverintendent, always in the active. We say that as a reminder, of course, because that last word in all conjugations in the indicative active break the rule that I becomes you in the face of N. Usually that is the case, but that last word, future perfect third person plural, is always int in the indicative active. Now let's recite our numbers. 2 systems, cardinal and ordinal. We'll do the cardinals first. Ready? Unus, duo, tres, quatuor, quinque, sex, septem, octo, novem, decim. Well done. Now let's recite our ordinal numbers. Now, these are type 1 adjectives, primus, prima, primum, etc. But we're only going to say the masculine singular form so that we still get the counting feel to them. Ready? Primus, secundus, tertius, quartus, quintus, sextus, septimus, octavus, nonus, and decimus. Well done. Now on to our second form recitations. Let's recite puer, pueri, second declension masculine, er, ir variant. Decline. Puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero, pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. Now ager. Ager, agree, agro, agrum, agro, agree, agrorum, agris, agros, agris. Now vir. Vir, viri, viro, virum, viro, viri, virorum, viris, viros, viris. Those are easy, right? They're mostly second declension masculine, except that one nominative singular form, but I hand you that form, so that's easy. Let's recite integer, integra, integrum. Ready? Type 1, first, second declension adjective. All 30 forms. Integer, integra, integrum, integree, integrate, integree, integro, integrate, integro, integrum, integram, integrum, integro, integra with a macron, integro. The plurals, integree, integrate, integra, integrorum, integram, integrorum, integris, 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 integros, integras, integra, integris, integris, integris. Remember, the integra, right there is the neuter rule. Nominative and accusative are the same. In any neuter declension, nominatives and accusatives are the same, and they're a in the plural. Well done. Now let's recite pars partis. This is a third declension I stem, masculine and feminine word. Remember, it has an ium in the genitive plural. Pars partis, parti, partem, parte, partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. And there's that strange genitive plural form. Now let's do the neuter third I stem, mare, maris. Ready? Remember, mare has an I, as well as the genitive ium here. It also has an I in the ablative singular. Ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie, maria, marium, maribus, maria, maribus. One more thing about mare. Remember that it has mare, maris, marie, mare. Why is that? That's right, because in any neuter declension, nominatives and accusatives are the same, and they're a in the plural. So the mare right here determines that this one in the accusative will also be mare. And of course, we get ia and ia here in accordance with the neuter rule. Let's recite brevis, breve, which is the type 2 third declension adjective, which in the neuter exactly follows mare. Here we go. Brevis, brevis, brevi, brevem, brevi, breves, brevium, brevibus, breves, brevibus. That was the masculine and feminine forms. Now the neuters. Breve, brevis, brevi, breve, brevi, brevia, brevium, brevibus, brevia, brevibus. You notice in this chart, the ablative singular with the I is in both the masculine and feminine and the neuter side. Well done. Now let's recite our personal pronouns, both of the first and second person, beginning with ego. Ready? Ego, mei, mihi, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. Don't forget that double genitive in the plural. Now tu, for you. Tu, tui, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Well done. Those are all the ways in Latin to say I and me, we and us, you and what I say as y'all. Good work. Sedete? Again, welcome to Lesson 10 The second form Latin. Let's look at our Latin saying for the day. Ab urbe condita, from the founding of the city. Ab urbe condita. Of course, this is the title of Livy's History of Rome, and he uses a preposition here, ab urbe condita, from the founding of the city. As part of our regular recitation, let's recite the 8 parts of speech, because today we're doing a new part of speech. We're doing prepositions today. So, the parts of speech form a kind of Eiffel Tower, as you see to my right here. And with the weighty forms, the ones having lots and lots of conjugatable and declinable forms are on the bottom, and the lighter, more undeclinable and unconjugatable things up top. So our big basis, of course, is the verb and the nouns and the verbs. Then there's the 2 A forms that modify those two. Adjectives modify nouns and adverbs modify verbs. Then the 2 P forms, pronouns, which we've already covered, part of them, and prepositions. And then, very, very top of the tower, conjunctions and interjections. Good, so nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, conjunctions, interjections. 8 parts of speech. All right, let's begin our discussion of prepositions. Prepositions, more than any other part of speech, can be very slippery. Now, with all parts of speech, we said, how do you know how to translate similar forms? And the answer has been 3 words, context, context, context. Ultimately, the context of a word determines its meaning, because words have kind of a bandwidth of meaning, and its context will hone in on one part. For instance, running. I'm running for office, my refrigerator is running, my nose is running. These are very, very different definitions for the exact same word, and the context determines that. Similarly with prepositions. Prepositions are meant to show relationships between words and actions and things going on in a sentence. And so prepositions can mean a variety of things based on their context. And so the definitions we're going to give you here are maybe the core. I would say the core or the central translations for these prepositions, but don't be surprised if you see them used in slightly different ways. Now, the one thing about prepositions is that they cannot be seen alone. They are never just hanging out there by themselves doing their own thing. They always occur in what we call prepositional phrases. And the phrase of a preposition is very simply made up of the preposition and its object. So its object can be a noun or pronoun or maybe a preposition, maybe a participle. But in any case, it's in a phrase. And whenever I see prepositions in Latin, I just go ahead and bracket them off with parentheses to set it off by itself. Almost exclusively, the word order here is pretty standard. The preposition will appear and then its object. Now, in Latin, of course, there's good style that you can separate these two and put modifiers in between. But I'm talking about the order. The preposition almost always occurs first, and then the object. So, if it's going to take a noun or a pronoun as an object right here, these prepositions, by the way, are not declinable. The list you see in front of you is the list of prepositions that take the ablative, and there you can't decline it. We're not going to have 10 forms for and 10 forms for karam, and 30 forms for kum. Aren't you glad? So these words will always appear this way. But what is declinable is its object. So prepositions always occur with an object of some kind, a noun or a nounish thing. Let's just say a nounish thing, shall we? Yes, we shall. So a nounish thing. So these nouns are declinable. So the question is, well, what case is the noun going to be in, right? So the noun does have to occur in some case, one of the 5, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, or ablative. Which one does it occur in? Well, prepositions can take 2 cases primarily. Here we're showing you the list for the ablative. In the next lesson, lesson 11, we're going to show you the list for the accusative. And actually, the list is a lot longer for the accusative. There are something like 50 prepositions, but we gave you the more common ones in both of these lists. Okay, a couple little details we need to cover before we get to the forms. I'm looking at bullet 3 here. A and ab, the first one on the list, and E and X, the 5th one down, have a special situation. That is, they can occur in 2 different forms. Those aren't 2 different prepositions. A and ab are the same preposition, and E and X are the same preposition. One is just an abbreviated form of the other. The shortened form occurs when the preposition takes an object that begins with a consonant. So anytime the preposition takes an object beginning with a consonant, the preposition will shorten to the shortened version. So instead of ab, you wouldn't say ab Cesare. You'd say a Cesare. And you wouldn't say ex Cesare, you'd say a Cesare because that Cesare starts with a consonant. This is similar to the way a and an, our article, works in English. You would never say a apple. You'd say an apple. So you'd add that consonant on. I like to think of it as these vowels that begin these prepositions don't like other vowels and they need a shield in front of them. And so if it begins with a word that begins with a vowel, it wants that shield of the B or the X. It wants to hold that shield up to shield it from other vowels. Perhaps vowels fight a lot. And actually they kind of do. They do fight a lot, particularly in Greek, but also in Latin. And so that E, that A, if it takes an object where the word has a vowel, a beginning vowel, it will throw up that shield to protect itself, that B or that X. Last item before we go through the list is that cum has a special usage here. You see at the bottom of page 33 that cum can sometime just slam into another word and reverse order. So instead of saying cum me or cum nobis or cum vobis or cum te, the words slam together and switch order, so you get mecum and tecum and nobiscum and vobiscum. Quite common, not required. I've seen these words as two separate words with the cum first, but it does happen quite a bit. So you need to just be aware that can happen. It's really just the two words slammed together, like house and dog. You slam together to get a dog house. It's something like that. Really, a better analogy would be the word within, and so in and with put together and reordered. So within. Now let's finally get to our list of prepositions that take the ablative. By take the ablative, I mean that these prepositions will govern the ablative case, or they'll have an object that is in the ablative case. So if you put a word in a prepositional phrase, that word has to be in its ablative case. Now, just real quickly, think about all the ablative endings that you have. Let's think about the ablative singulars in our declension tree. Think about them. A, a, us, e, o, e, o, blank, e, c, m, a, blank, e, c, blank, e, c, blank, a, us, ui, u, and ace, a. So singular vowels for the ablative singular. And in the plural, you have is, ebus, and abus. So these are the endings that your nouns will have, or nounish things will have to be in order to be in a prepositional phrase, because these prepositions, remember, take or govern specific cases, and this list takes or governs the ablative case. So let's look at our list real quick of prepositions that take the ablative. A or ab, by or from. In English, we'd say absent or things like that. Coram, in the presence of. Cum, with. De, and these are two pretty different meanings. About, meaning concerning, or down from. So we would say we devalue the currency. That means the value has gone down from its original value. But also, as in our Latin saying today, no, not as a Latin saying, titles of a lot of books. The title of Caesar's book about the Gallic Wars was De Bello Gallico, concerning the Gallic War. A or X, E or X, out of or out from. You see this word in English and a lot of these prepositions as prefixes added onto other words with the meaning of this preposition kind of added in there. So words like exit and exonerate and absent and things like that. In can mean in or on. And in is one of those prepositions that occurs in both, it takes both the ablative and the accusative case, and it means slightly different things when it takes the different cases. You have to watch out for that. Pre means at the head of, as in a predict. Pro, for or on behalf of, is kind of the same meanings. I'd put a slash between those, for on behalf of. By for, we mean the on behalf of kind of for, as in, I wrapped this gift for you, on behalf of you. Another meaning is in front of. This is quite a different meaning, as in the presence of. Sine, without. I like to think of sine in conjunction with cum. So I think of cum sine, with, without. Cum sine, with, without. It's just good to put those opposite pairs together. Sub, under or at the foot of. So Subway, not Subway sandwiches, but well, that's based on the Subway, right? Subway, sublimate, subject, all those. There's lots of. By subject, I mean to subject somebody to slavery or some sort of thing like that. To put under. Very good. And then tenus, as far as. Now let me talk about general meanings for the ablative. In general, the ablative communicates a kind of still location. Not in reference to anything else, just, you're in the city. You're under the wall. You're in front of the king. That sort of idea. So there's this, just generally speaking, they don't all fall in this category, but generally speaking, there's this location sense for the ablative that's given. There's no motion suggestion or anything like that. Now, there's two ways to learn that these prepositions take or govern the ablative case. One is the brute force method. We just bang our way through these and just remember ar, ob, with the ablative, by or from. Coram, with the ablative, in the presence of. Cum, with the ablative, meaning with. That's the brute force method, and it will work. But there's more of a finessing method. If you would like to hear it, I will now give it to you. If you don't want to hear it, fast forward. Okay, here's the finesse method to learn that these prepositions take the ablative. It is with a song. That is a very silly song, and you never want to sing it in public because you would be ridiculed, but it will help you memorize that these are the prepositions that take the ablative. The song is to the tune of "O Christmas Tree." If you don't know it, I'll sing it for you briefly. "O Christmas tree, O Christmas tree, thy boughs," or I don't know the rest of it. That's how it starts. You know the tune. It's also called "O Tannenbaum," perhaps if you have a very, very old hymnal. But "O Christmas Tree" fits the rhythm of these prepositions really nicely. And so I've changed the tune title to be called "O Ablative," right? Because we want to remember that these prepositions take the ablative case. So it's a very simple song and a lot of repetition for the sake of memorization. So I'm going to sing it, and you can or cannot sing it with me. It's very useful to have it in your head, though. Even if you're just able to go, there's that preposition, so it must take the ablative. Really useful. So learn it with me. Here we go. Ob coram cum de ex in pre, prosine subtenus. Ob coram cum de ex in pre, prosine subtenus. The prepositions of ablative, this is the silly part, are easy to remember. Ob coram cum de ex in pre, prosine subtenus. So this is O ablative. And it reminds you that these prepositions in this song take the ablative case. Now remember, there's a couple exceptions here. Not exceptions, additions to. In and sub take the accusative as well, with slightly different meanings. So you're going to see those prepositions again, but the rest of these just take exclusively the ablative case. All right, let's look at our vocab. Porta, porte, gate. Now this should remind you of portus portus, the fourth declension for harbor. And they are kind of similar. They're both sort of gates. The portus is kind of a gate to the land, a gate from the sea. That's fine. So they have that opening idea. That's fine. But this first declension feminine word is more like the gate of a house or the gate of a walled area. So think more like that. Cella, celle. This is chair. This is seat or chair. I want you to think about this word. Think about a cella tucked under a mensa. Picture that in your head, and that picture will really help you keep those words in order, because in your mind, tables and chairs go together. So do that in Latin too. Mensa for table, cella for chair. All right. Ara, are for altar. Epistola, epistole for letter. This is easy if you remember that the epistles to the Romans was a letter that Paul wrote. So he's writing a letter, and we called it the epistles for that reason. And with villa, ville, for farmhouse, I can't help it. I like to think of Bob Vila. If you guys don't know Bob Vila used to have a show called This Old House, and he was just exactly like that. They'd take an old house and they'd fix it up. It was a construction show. It was a lot of fun, actually, but I'm not sure if it's showing anymore. Bob Vila, kudos. Anyway, so villa, ville is farmhouse. So I like to think of villa, ville, Bob Villa, this old farmhouse. That really helps me a whole lot. All right, this concludes Lesson 10. Remember, what we covered today was a new part of speech. Prepositions, they show relationships between things. And these prepositions govern or take certain cases. And the list we learned today is the list that takes or governs the ablative case. They can be remembered with the tune of O Christmas Tree, which I call O ablative, and easily put into your head for memory use later. Always good to know what case a preposition takes. So, memorize this list very carefully and their definitions very carefully, and I'll see you in lesson 11 for prepositions that take the accusative. Welcome to Second Form Latin, lesson 11. Let's do our recitation. Surgite are noun endings with their example words. Ready? I'll say the nominative singular first and you can follow with me. Mensa. Mensa, mense, mense, mensa, mensa, mense, mensar, mensis, mensas, mensis. Servus. Servus, servi, servo, servum, servo, servi, servorm, servis, servo, servis. Bellum. Bellum, belli, bello, bellum, bello, bella, bellorum, bellis, bella, bellis. Third masculine, pax, pachis. Pax, pachis, pachi, pachem, pache. Paches, pacum, pacibus, paches, pacibus. Let's do nomen, nominis. Nomen, nominis, nomini, nomen, nomine. Nomina, nominum, nominibus, nomina, nominibus. Spiritus for fourth. Spiritus, spiritus, spiritui, spiritum, spiritu. Spiritus, spirituum, spiritibus, spiritus, spiritibus. And fifth, space. Space, spei, spei, spem, space, space, sperum, spebus, space, spebus. Well done. Now let's decline moneo, monere, monui, monetus in all 6 conjugations. I'm sorry, let's conjugate moneo, monere, monui, monetus in all 6 tenses. Ready? Begin. Moneo, mones, monate, monemus, monetus, monent. Monebam, monebas, monebat. Monebamus, monebatus, monebant. Monebo, monebis, monebit. Monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. Now the perfect system, beginning with monui. Ready? Monui, monuisti, monuit. Monuimus, monuistus, monuerunt. Monueram, monueras, monuerat. Monueramus, monueratus, monuerant. Monuero, monueris, monuerit. Monuerimus, monueritus, monuer, intendent. Always in the active, because of course the last word in all 4 conjugations in the indicative active breaks the rule that I becomes you in the face of in. And so we get int, indent, future perfect third person plural. Well done. Now, with that framework of our basic nouns and verb forms set up, let's put in a few of the details. Let's recite our second declension masculine ER, IR variants. We're going to do puer, ager, and vir. Ready? Puer. Puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero. Pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. Ager, agree. Ready? Ager, agree, agro, agrum, agro. Agree, agrorum, agrees, agros, agrees. And vir. Vir, viri, viro, virum, viro. Viri, virorum, viris, viros, viris. Of course, we supply 3 of these second declension masculine ER, IR variants just to show you that some of them with the ER lose the E, some of them with the ER keep the E, and some of them have IR. But really, they're really simple. They're second declension masculine, but if you know how to find your stem from the genitive singular removing that ending, there's really only one type. Some have ERs, some have IRs, but they all have the stem, the genitive singular. And since I hand you the only different form, the only nominative singular, since I hand you that form, and the rest of them fall second declension masculine, then they're fairly easy to decline. Well done. Now let's decline miser, misera, miserum. It's a type 1 first and second declension adjective with 30 forms. Ready? Recite. Miser, misera, miserum. Miseri, misere, miseri. Misero, misere, misero. Miserum, miseram, miserum. Misero, misera with a macron, misero. Now the plurals. Miseri, misere, misera. Miserorm, miserar, miserorm. Miseris, miseris, miseris. Miseros, miseras, misera. Miseris, miseris, miseris. It's real tempting on this word to say that S sound as a Z, miser. I even want to do it sometimes. You may have even heard me say it a couple times, but there's no Z sound, so S always appears as S. So miser is how we're saying it. Now let's fill in some details with third declension. We're going to do our third declension I stems, pars partis and mare maris. Pars partis the masculine feminine, mare maris is the neuter. Let's do pars partis. Ready? Decline. Pars partis, parti, partem, parte. Partes, partium. Remember that genitive IUM. Partibus, partes, partibus. The rest is that's the only strange thing about third I stem, masculine feminine, that genitive plural. Now let's look at mare maris. Mare maris has a few more difficulties. It has, of course, the IUM, the genitive plural, but it has that I in the ablative singular. And not to mention that your nominative and accusative, instead of just being A, are IA. But of course, it's an I stem, so this isn't too surprising. Here we go. Ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, because of the new rule. Marie with an I. Maria, marium, maribus, maria, maribus. Let's do that again with no interruptions from me. Ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. Maria, marium, maribus, maria, maribus. Well done. Now let's recite our type 2 third declension adjective with 20 forms. Brevis, breve. Of course, the neuter forms of brevis, breve will be based exactly on mare, marie, so it's good that we already have mare down. Let's recite brevis, or decline it rather. Ready? Masculine, feminine side. Brevis, brevis, brevi, brevem, brevi. Breves, brevium, brevibus, breves, brevibus. Remember, masculine feminine side of brevis has the I in the active singular. Let's do the neuters now. Breve, brevis, brevi, breve, brevi. Brevia, brevium, brevibus, brevia, brevibus. Just as a reminder, adjectives match the nouns they modify in gender, number, case, so they're required to have all the genders, all the numbers, all the cases. In the case of type 2 adjectives, this is easy. They're all separate, so you have 30 forms. With type 2 or third declension adjectives, since the masculine and feminine forms are identical, you just have 20 forms. I mean, technically you could say you have 30 forms, but masculine and feminine are exactly the same. But you might as well just shorten it down to 20. Let's go ahead and recite our first person pronouns and second person pronouns, beginning with ego. Ready? Ego, mei, miki, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. Second person, tu, tui, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Well done. Remember, that's all the ways to say I and me, we and us, you and y'all. Good work. All right, good recitation. Before we stop, let's go ahead and finish with, before we sit down, let's go ahead and finish with our parts of speech, the 8 parts of speech. Ready? Let's build our little Eiffel Tower. Nouns and adjectives, the modifiers with A. Sorry, that's wrong. Let's start again. The 8 parts of speech, the little Eiffel Tower. Ready? Nouns and verbs, then the modifiers of those 2 things, adjectives and adverbs, then the 2 P's, prepositions, pronouns and prepositions, and then conjunctions and interjections. Again, welcome to lesson 11. Let's look at our Latin saying for the day. Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal at the gates. This is something akin to the redcoats are coming. They're here. You know, they're on their way. So this Hannibal was mounting an invasion of the Italian peninsula. And so Hannibal was at the gates when he had crossed that mountain range. He was there, and so they needed to do something about it. It's the same thing as the redcoats are coming. You'll notice that you have a preposition in this saying ad portas. In this lesson 11, we're going to be covering prepositions that take or govern the accusative. And by that I mean these prepositions, and a lot more of them, will require their object to be in the accusative case. Now, just like the ablatives, the accusatives have a kind of flavor to them. You remember that the ablatives were a stated position, kind of thing. You're in the city or you're under the house, that sort of thing. Accusatives have a similar flavor. But before we get there, let's consider a few other things. As we go through this list of prepositions, I fear that you may feel I am splitting hairs and getting way too detailed and subtle with the definitions of these prepositions. But I'd like to remind you that prepositions in English are far more wiggly. For instance, just as a case, the word for, the preposition for, F-O-R in English, has quite a few definitions. Let me just read a few of them for you. The preposition for could indicate object, aim, purpose, destination, desire, intention, perception, recipient, beneficiary, on behalf of, in favor of, in place of, equivalence, equality, correlation, correspondence, amount, extent, duration, specific time, number of attempts, considering the nature, unusual character of. I didn't list all of them. That was just some of them. So the preposition for, its uses in English, are vastly varied. So in Latin, they're a little easier because while there are a lot of prepositions in Latin, they have specific and nuanced meanings or detailed, subtle meanings. Let's go through the list real quick and just check out the definitions as they are given here. So odd, to or towards. You'll see this looks a lot like ob, and I kind of think of them as a pair. Ob is from, and odd is to or towards. Ante is before. You remember it from the Latin saying antebellum, before the war. Also, antecedent is a really good derivative for ante. Okay, apud means among. In means into or onto. You'll remember this one from the last list. Remember, in the ablative just means in or on. Still, not moving. In the accusative has a suggested motion meaning, into or onto. Inter means between. Ob means because of. More on ob later. Per means through. I like to think of persist or perforate. When paper is perforated, there are holes punched through the paper. That always helps me a lot. Post is after or behind. Propter, on account of. More on propter later. Sub to the foot of, and you remember sub was from the ablative list as well, and there it just meant under, no motion suggested. The cat is under the house. But sub to the foot of or under, there's a motion suggested there. Trans means across. That's easy. Transcontinental Railroad, transport, translation. There's a lot of transes. And in English, they come across as prefixes. Cercum, around, both in stationary and in motion. So I have a hedge around my house, or the cat is running around the house. Both meanings for cercum are there. Contra literally means against when there's opposition. So when there's someone pushing or something pushing the other direction, or say two armies against each other, that kind of against. Not as in I lean against the bookshelf, not like that. Okay, juxta, near. More on juxta later. Well, let's talk about the flavors of these accusative prepositions. There's several things I want to say, so let's just start here. The accusative has two general flavors. One of them is suggested motion or destination. Now, these really split right in half. Here are the prepositions that suggest motion or destination. Ad, in, per, sub, trans, cercum, and contra. You might want to go ahead and circle those. Circle those real quick. Ad, in, per, sub, trans, cercum, and contra. Circle those. Those are suggested motion or destination. So there's some idea or some sense that you're moving with these. Often this is given by the main verb of the sentence. And if the main verb of the sentence is that you're putting, or you're marching, or you're placing these ideas, there's motion suggested, so that will come across in these prepositions. The other is referential location. Let me describe what I mean by that. There's two ways you could say location. You could just say where you are, or you can give a reference point and say where you are in reference to that point. So for instance, if I say, I am next to the bookshelf. There it is. The bookshelf is my reference point. I am next to it. If I said I am behind this podium, here's the podium, and I'm right behind it. Right behind it. Let me set it right in place again. You are in front of me. So in that case, I'm the reference point, and I'm telling you where you are based on where I am. So there's lots of words like that, and the ones in this list that have referential location suggested are all the ones you didn't circle, but let's go ahead and go through them. Ante, apud, inter, ob, post, propter, and juxta. Now, let me discuss several of these that have similar meanings. Let's look at apud, juxta, and inter. These have some similar meanings, so let's talk about them. Apud is among in the sense that it's in the vicinity or in the neighborhood of. So if you pictured a circle in the midst of or among a bunch of other little boxes, this is apud. It's in the neighborhood, and there's other things around. So you're sort of considering a lot of other objects that you are around. So in this vicinity of these squares, that's where the circle is. Juxta is more in just consideration of one object. You remember earlier I said I'm next to the bookshelf. Just considering this one bookshelf. I'm not in the neighborhood of many bookshelves, just this one. Here's a bookshelf and I'm next to it. Then there's inter. And inter considers particularly two objects that you're between. So if I was to say that my ring finger is between my middle finger and my pinky. So there's sort of just two objects I'm considering. Just my pinky and my middle finger, and then the ring finger's in the middle. So it's between. So between is two objects, next to is one, and apud, there's more than that. There's several in the neighborhood. So consider apud as in the vicinity of, just to help you remember. And inter is between or among, and juxta as next to. Now let's consider ob and propter. Ob and propter could both mean very similar things because of and on account of very different subtle flavors there, subtle flavors. So let's talk about the difference. Ob could also be glossed with in consideration of, and maybe propter could also be glossed with the idea of more cause and effect. So let me give you two situations. When I was in college once, I had a little cat named Taylor, who later became Father Abraham and ran away. But Taylor was one time walking on, I lived on the second story of an apartment building. He was walking on a ledge, And on the ledge there was a piece of wood, a little tiny, little thin, like luan, very thin plywood. And part of the wood was on the ledge, and part of the wood was off the ledge. And he was a kitten, so he wasn't very clever at this point. And so I was afraid he was going to walk on the part of the board that was off the ledge and fall over. Now this actually happened. He did step on the part that was off the ledge, and the board flipped over. But as only cats could do, he ended up catching himself before he fell, and he hooked onto a chain link fence that was there, a guardrail of some kind. I don't know how he did it. It was lightning fast. I didn't even see how he caught on, but he caught himself and climbed up, and he was fine. So this is how I'm going to tell you the difference between these two. So, if I was going to say the cat fell because he stepped on the board, the because here I would use is more like propter. He fell because the board was off the ledge, right? So there's a direct cause and effect there. He stepped on the board, that's why he fell. That's the because of, the cause and effect. But the O would be used more like this. I thought about my cat falling, and so I moved the board because of, or in consideration of, my cat having almost fallen. So I'm thinking about this board situation with off the lip of the edge, and he almost fell. Not direct cause and effect, but considering that idea, I moved the board. So those are pretty different flavors, but we're just going to go with because of and on account of for these two, but I want to explain the slight difference between them. Let's talk about in and sub. In and sub are both they're in the ablative case as well as the accusative, and here they are listed as suggested motion. So how does a preposition bring across suggested motion? Well, it kind of doesn't. The main verb of the sentence that these prepositions will be used in would really be carrying the motion idea. So if you're putting a cat, if the cat is under the table, you see your cat, she's under the table, you're going to use the ablative there. Sub mensa. But if the cat is running from the 2-year-old and leaps under the table, that's going to be sub mensam, because there's motion suggested by the main verb. But go ahead and consider that suggested motion attached to the in and the specific case. So stationary is when in and sub take the ablative. Motion suggested is when in and sub take the accusative case. All right, in the last chapter, we learned the ablative prepositions with a song. In this chapter, I have an interpretive dance. No, I'm kidding. It's another song. It's another song for prepositions that take the accusative. And so this song is just a different song, not the same song. Aren't you glad? So the song this time is Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread. Now, I may need to teach you this one because this hasn't been on the top 10 charts for quite a number of years, at least 3. So this tune goes, Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Now, don't call me and correct my music. If I'm getting the song wrong, then you're just going to have to deal with it. But this is just a memory trick. So here's how it goes. We're going to actually leave 3 of them out. We're going to leave out Chercum, Contra, and Juxta. Why, you say? Because they don't match my song. All right, here we go. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Here we go. Ad ante apud in inter oper post propter sub et trans. You don't like it? Go find another Latin teacher. No, I'm kidding. So we leave out the last 3, Chercum, Contra, and Juxta. And there's actually another way to sing it, if you want to hear the other way. The other way is a little faster, harder to get a hold of. Here's the other way. Ad ante apud in inter oper post propter subjunt Chercum, Contra, Juxta. That's a little more tough. So you can jam in those last 3 if you really want to. And I'm probably really butchering Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread. Sorry about that. But this will really help, just another memory device to really help you with the prepositions that take the accusative. And so when you see these prepositions in text, you'll have a feeling for what case they're going to govern or take. And what case a preposition governs or takes seems like it would be just completely obvious, right? Because the object is going to be right next to the preposition. Well, remember, not always. I mean, I think it's almost always the case that the preposition is before the object, but not necessarily right next to. Often in Latin, the object and the preposition will be separated by quite a few words, sometimes entire clauses, and then the clause that's jammed in the middle will be used to modify this prepositional phrase. So you got to know, that's coram. That's going to take an ablative. So there's no way it's taking any of these words. I bet it takes this word way over here. So you really do have to know which cases are governed by which prepositions. So use this song, Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread, to remember these. All right, let's look at our vocabulary. I'm going to start off with a really difficult one to find a derivative for. Herba, herbe. Yeah, it's... Oh, I know. What about herbs? So green plant or grass, most of what we call herbs, we think of seasonings when we say herbs, but most of them come from little green plants or little grassy plants. So that should be helpful. Vaca, vache for cow. Tabela, tabele for tablet or writing tablet. Now chena, chene should be easy for this. Let's put this into our word picture for table. So we had mensa for table, and underneath the mensa we have tucked a sella, and now we're on top of the table we're going to have chena, chene for dinner. So we got the dinner on the table, on the chair. And the last one, turba, turbe. I can't help it. I know this one means crowd or turmoil, but every time I see turba, turbe, I think of a crowd. I mean, I think of a turban. I can't help it. It just looks too much like turban for me to escape this. And so I have a way around this. You might have this problem too. Maybe you don't. Now I'm giving you this problem. My apologies. But anyway, so instead of just thinking, oh man, that looks too much like a turban, think of a crowd where everyone is wearing a turban. So this should help you. So turba, turbe, it's a crowd. Everyone has a turban. So there's a crowd, there's turmoil, there's chaos, it's a crowdy street. Even think of like adobe brick buildings like the Middle East and sand for instead of dirt. And so think of that. It's a crowd with everyone's wearing a turban. Okay, this concludes lesson 11. Remember that there are prepositions that take or govern certain cases, and they either take the ablative or the accusative. This is the list of words that take the accusative. And their flavor of the accusative prepositions is motion or suggested destination or referential location, next to or underneath, that sort of thing. Or motion suggested, towards, across, these sorts of ideas. And that's the accusative mostly. Remember, these are general flavors, and so you can't rely on them necessarily just by knowing the meanings, but accusative prepositions do have these two senses about them. So this is really the last lesson for this unit where you have one more review lesson to complete it off. But you're basically done with Unit 2, so well done. And I'll see you for the review next lesson. Welcome to Second Form Latin. You have come to the end of Unit 2, which can only mean one thing. That is, Unit 3 is about to start. Well done for going this far. You are almost halfway through the book, and we are done with our extra nounish things, and we're going to review them right now. You'll notice that the only thing not in this lesson is the meus, meam, meum, tuus, tu, autum, vester, vestra, vestrum, noster, nostra, nostrum. They're actually in the vocabulary on the facing page because they were so much like type 1 adjectives, we just thought they were more dictionary items than they were new forms. But first, let's do our recitation. Surgite, recitemus. Let's begin with our noun endings. Ready? A, arum, is, as, is. Us, o, e, is, os, is. E, o, a, is, a, is. Third, blank, is, ace, ibus, ace, ibus. Blank, is, blank, a, ibus, a, ibus. Us, ui, us, ibus, ibus. And ace, ace, arum, abus, ace, abus. I'd like to remind you that the declension, the 7 declension charts that you know out of the 5 declensions, begins with a feminine chart, first feminine, and ends with a feminine chart in 5th. Now let's conjugate voco, vocare, vocavi, vocatus. First conjugation verb. Ready? Voco, vocas, vocat, vocamus, vocatus, vocant. Vocabam, vocabas, vocabat, vocabamus, vocabatus, vocabant. Vocabo, vocabis, vocabit, vocabimus, vocabitus, vocabunt. Too fast? Well, then put me on frame by frame. Perfect tense, ready? Vocavi, vocavisi, vocavit, vocavimus, vocavisis, vocaverum, vocaveram, vocaveras, vocaverat, vocaveramus, vocaveratus, vocaverant, vocavero, vocaveris, vocaverit, vocaverimus, vocaveritus, vocaver, intent. Always in the active. Well done. Let's go over our regular first conjugation principal part endings. Ready? They're o, are, avi, atus. Now let's go to second conjugation. Moneo, monere, monui, monatus, to warn or advise. Let's conjugate moneo in all 6 tenses. And for this time, we're going to try to do it in a single breath. I will join you in this. As soon as I turn blue, I will stop and breathe, and then we'll continue. Ready? Moneo, mones, monet, moneus, monetis, monet, moneba, monebas, monebat, monebabas, monebatis, monebat, monebo, monebis, monebit, monebimus, monebitis, monebunt, monoi, monoisi, monoit, monoimus, monoisis, monoarut, monoara, monoaras, monoarat, monoaramus, monoaratus, monoarant, monoaro, monoaris, monoarit, monoarimus, monoaritus, monoare, indent, always in the active. Well done. I hope you made it. If you have fallen over, please revive yourself with smelling salts, and let's continue with the recitation. Let's do our second declension masculine ER-IR variants, beginning with puer. Ready? Puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero, pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. Now, ager, agree, agro, agrum, agro, agree, agrorum, agris, agros, agris. Now with vir. Vir, viri, viro, virum, viro, viri, virorum, viris, viros, viris. Remember, these second declension ER-IR variants only vary in the nominative singular form, either having an ER or IR, thus the name, second declension masculine ER-IR variants. And that's the form that has to be given to you if you're going to decline the word. So they're very easy. Other than that, they follow second declension masculine. And you find the stem in the exact same place, genitive singular, chop off the ending. Let's go and decline into ger, into gra, into groom. It's a type 1, first, second declension adjective with an ER form in the nominative masculine singular. Here we go, which I give you. Ready? Into ger, into gra, into groom. Into gree, into gray, into gree. Into grow, into gray, into grow. Into groom, into grom, into groom. Into grow, into gra with a makeron, into grow. Now the plurals. Into gree, into gray, into gra. Into gorm, into gorm, into gorm. Into grease, into grease, into grease. Into gross, into gras, into gra. Into grease, into grease, into grease. Even here, the neuter rule holds that in any neuter declension, nominative and accusative are the same. Remember over here they were into groom and into groom. And they're a in the plural, into gra and into gra. So that neuter rule, it holds, a really good rule. Let's skip misere today and go straight to our third declension I stem nouns, beginning with pars partis, the masculine and feminine one. Remember, I stems have an IUM, the genitive plural. Pars partis, parti, partem, parte, partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. Well done. Now the neuter third I stem, mare, maris. Remember, mare not only has the IUM in the genitive plural, but also has an I in the ablative singular. We would expect an E in normal third declension words, but this is third I stem. So there's an I here. Here we go, mare, ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. With an I. Maria, maribus. I did that wrong. Let's start again. I did that wrong. Here we go. Everyone makes mistakes. Let's go. Maria, ready? Mare, maris. Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie, Maria, marium, maribus, Maria, maribus. There we go. All right. Now let's decline brevis, breve. This is a type 2 third declension adjective, and mostly brevis, breve will follow kind of an I stem pattern. Both the masculine, feminine, and the neuter charts have an I in the ablative singular. There's the IUM in the genitive plural, and the neuter is exactly like mare, maris. All right. So let's decline brevis, breve. We'll do the masculine and feminine first. Ready? Brevis, brevis, brevi, brevem, brevi. Breves, brevium, brevibus, breves, brevibus. Now the neuter side, which is exactly like mare. Ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. Maria. Oh, I did mare. It's a rough day for me. Let's do breve again. Ready? Breve, brevis, brevi, breve, brevi. Brevia, brevium, brevibus, brevia, brevibus. Well, we might have to cut this out. Okay. Let's do our first person personal pronouns, ego, mei, and also nos, nostri on the plural side. First person personal pronouns. Ready? Ego, mei, mihi, me. Nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. Now our second person personal pronouns. Tu, tui, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Well done. This is the unit review for Unit 2. Remember, when we started this unit, I reminded you that we were moving away from nouns and verbs for a moment, and we were going to be giving you a new part of speech. So we will be doing prepositions and pronouns and prepositions. Here's some things about what we studied in this unit that you might want to remember. Okay, so let's start with the pronouns. Look at your first person personal pronouns, ego, mei. Remember, these are the personal pronouns that replace I, me, and we, us, that the genitive plural and the genitive singular is not possessive. So mei and nostri, nostrum cannot be used in a possessive way, which is really strange because we're used to the genitive taking a possessive meaning. But these forms can be used as objective genitive or partitive genitive, which is not worth getting into right now. But it's the same thing for second person personal pronouns. So we have tui and vestri, vestrum. These cannot be used possessively. So we kind of have a hole in our pronoun world. We need a way to do my, our, their. We need a way to do those possessive pronouns because they're common and useful. So, filling in this hole, we have our meus, tuus, vester, and noster. These are the words for my, your, our, and your plural. We put these in the vocab list on page 37. Very last four forms. Meus aum, tuus aum, noster nostranostrum, vester vestravestrum. Again, my point here is that these fill in the usage of the possessive pronouns. So instead of just having 4 or 5 forms for those possessive pronouns, we have these 120 forms, which is typical of Latin. I think you've noticed the pattern. English has 2 or 3 ways to do it. Latin has 120. So it's that way. These cover that possessive usage for possessive personal pronouns. Okay, so from there, we did prepositions. Remember, in Latin, prepositions govern or take a certain case. So with small exceptions like in and sub, which take their own, which can cross those cases. In and sub can take both ablative and accusative. Most prepositions either take ablative, or they govern the ablative, or they take or govern the accusative. Also, you'll remember that these different cases, the ablative case and the accusative case, both of which take prepositions, have different flavors. So the ablative case has more of a flavor. Wait, let me say it again. The prepositions that take the ablative have a meaning where their flavor is kind of location. See, not completely, but generally, prepositions that take the ablative have this location idea. You're in the city. You're under the table. That sort of idea. And remember, we remembered the ablative prepositions with the song, O ablative, to the tune of O Christmas Tree. Abindecum coram prepro, sine ex subtenus. Wait, we sang it differently during the lesson, didn't we? We sang, Ab coram cum de ex and pre, pro sine subtenus. As 2 different versions. Everyone has a different version of O ablative, of course, right? Then, with the accusative case, there was a different flavor. There were 2 flavors, actually. Prepositions that take the accusative case either suggest motion or destination, or there's a referential location. So this is different from the ablative in that there's a reference point. So if I'm behind the lectern is my reference point. If I'm next to the bookcase is my reference point. If you're behind the city or after the war, there's reference points to which you are related in your location. Or there's motion or destination suggested. You're going into the wall. You're going through the army, that kind of thing, with a destination implied. And remember, we learned the accusative. We helped remember these accusative prepositions by the song Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread, which I will not sing here. But really, you only need to know one of the songs. Because if your preposition does not occur in the O ablative song, then your preposition is going to take the accusative. The only exceptions are in and sub. They take both cases and have different meanings, by the way. In the ablative means just in. In the accusative means into, upon, or against. Sub in the ablative just means under. Sub in the accusative means under or coming up to. So there's motion suggested there. All right, so these are our 2 new parts of speech, the pronouns and the prepositions. Now let's look at the vocabulary we learned in this unit, which was mostly first declension nouns. Let's look at them. Ready? We'll say the Latin, and we'll say the Latin dictionary form, including the genitive there, and then we'll say the English meaning. Here we go. Aquila, aquile, eagle. Aqua, aquae, water. Ara, are, altar. Aurora, aurore, for dawn. Cena, cene, for dinner. Remember, think of cena on the mensa, and underneath there's a cella. Put all those words together. Corona, corone, for crown. Culina, culine, for kitchen. Culpa, culpe, fault or blame. Epistola, epistule, for letter. Fabula, fabulae, story or tale. Femina, femine, woman. Fenestra, fenestre, for window. Filia, filiae, for daughter. Fortuna, fortunae, for fortune. Gallia, galliae, Gaul, the place. Notice Gaul in Latin is spelled different from Gaul in English. Gaul in English is G-A-U-L. Gaul in Latin is G-A-L-L. Remember that? And again, in the Roman mind, places were feminine in general. So you see here the Gallia, galliae is the first declension noun. Gratia, gratiae, favor, influence, or grace, but it can mean thanks in the plural. Herba, herbe, green plant or grass. Hispania, Hispaniae, for Spain. Insula, insule for island. Ira, ire for anger. Janua, janue for door. And Lucia, lucie for Lucy. Next column, Luna, lune for moon. Patria, patriae, fatherland or country. Pecunia, pecuniae for money. Porta, porte, gate. Remember this one's related to the portus, portus, harbor. Provincia, provinciae, province. Cella, celle, seat. Stella, stelle, star. Silva, silve for forest. Tabela, tabele, writing tablet. Turba, turbe for crowd or turmoil. Remember, we think of a crowd wearing turbans, right? The turban crowd in turmoil. Umbra, umbre for shadow. Unda, unde for wave. Ursa, urse for bear. Vaca, vache for cow. Via, vie, road or way. Victoria, victoriae, victory. Villa, ville, farmhouse. Vita, vitae for life. And then our possessive pronouns, which we spoke about earlier. Meus, mea, meum for my. Tuus, tua, tuum for your. Noster, nostra, nostrum for our. And vester, vestra, vestrum for your or y'all's plural. Remember, these type 1 adjectives here that are possessive pronouns act just like adjectives. They modify the noun. They match the noun they modify in gender, in number, in case. Which means a singular person, like your teacher, could own a plural number of things. That's fine. Or a plural group could own a single thing. But in any case, this adjective will always match the noun it modifies in gender, in number, in case. Let's look at our Latin sayings real quick. Ego sum via et veritas et vita. Et tu, Brute? Mea culpa. Ab urbe condita. Ab urbe condita. And Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal ad portas. Well done. We are now finished with Unit 2. In the next unit, I'll give a little introduction on the unit, and then we'll begin. We're basically going back to verbs to complete the conjugations. We've only done the first 2. So we'll finish up the indicative active verb chart in the next lesson. I'll see you there, and well done. Salve, and welcome to Unit 3 of Second Form Latin. Just to give you a brief overview of where we have been before I tell you where we are going, in first form, we covered the basic forms for nouns and for verbs. That was basically all first form. In second form, we began right away by showing you some things that we had left out of our original nouns and verbs, mostly the nouns, nounish things. So some ER, IR variants, the third I stem nouns, like pars, partis, mare. Then in Unit 2 of second form, we talked about a new part of speech, prepositions and pronouns, and we dealt with those, prepositions that take the accusative and the ablative, and the pronouns of the personal pronouns, although there's 8 types. In Unit 3, we are going to now return to verbs. So we filled in some holes with nouns, we did a new part of speech, and now we're going to return to verbs and complete the different conjugations. Now, we've already studied first and second conjugation, and that is 2 of the 4 main conjugations. Remember, a conjugation is just a verb family. It's just a lot of verbs that have similar endings, similar principal parts, and so you lump them together because they basically behave the same. So if you learn one conjugation verb, like voco, then you know them all. Same with second conjugation. Third and fourth conjugations are their own animal. They follow some different rules, especially in the present system, than first and second conjugation do. I like to think of these 2 conjugations as 2 little subfamilies, 2 little tribes of the same people group. So for conjugation 1 and 2, they follow that standard building process in the present system. You go to the second principal part, you chop off the ary, add your tense markers and your endings. But third and fourth conjugation, they don't necessarily do that. There's something different that they follow. And so we're going to get into that and the differences there. Also, third conjugation has a subgroup called third IO. And by I mean the letter I and the letter O, third IO verbs. And they're a combination of these 2 third and fourth conjugations. We'll talk about that when we get there. We're also going to look into adverbs that are in this unit. So these are words that modify an action of a verb. So instead of just I call, it's to call softly, or instead of run swiftly, or to drink fast. Oh, that's not right. To eat quickly. That's what I do. Anyway, so in this unit, we're gonna be looking at adverbs and the third and fourth conjugations. Again, still in the indicative active and only the present system. We'll leave the perfect system for another unit. So let's get to it. Welcome to Unit 3. Salvete, amici latine. Welcome to Lesson 12, second form. This is the first unit of Unit 3. This is the first lesson of Unit 3. Let's go ahead and do our recitation. Surgite, recitemus. Let's do our tense endings for all 6 tenses. Ready? Ost, mus tis ent. Bom bos bot, bomus botus bont. Bo bis bit, bimus bitus bunt. Is to eat, emus is to serunt. Erameras erat, eramus eratus erant. Ero eris erit. Erimus eritus er intendent. Always in the active. Well done. Let's conjugate amo in the present system only. So this is the first 3 tenses. Ready? Amo, amare, amavi, amatus are our principal parts. Let's begin. Amo, amas, amat. Amamus, amatus, amat. Amabam, amabas, amabat. Amabamus, amabatus, amabant. Amabo, amabis, amabit. Amabimus, amabitus, amabunt. That was a classic first conjugation verb. Let's do a classic second conjugation. Moneo, monere, monui, monitus. Ready? Begin. Moneo, mones, monate. Monemus, monatus, monent. Monebam, monebas, monebat. Monebamus, monebatus, monebant. Monebo, monebis, monebit. Monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. Well done. Now let's conjugate sum, esse, fui, futurus in the present system as well. Sum es est, sumus est sunt. Eram eras erat, eramus eratus erant. Ero eris erit, erimus eritus erunt. Well done. Now let's recite the regular principal part endings for the first conjugation. O, are, avi, atus. Now the 4 irregular forms, do, sto, juvo, and lavo. Do, dare, dedi, datus. Sto, stare, steti, status. Juvo, juvare, juvi, jutus. Lavo, lavare, lavi, lautus. Well done. Now let's recite the principal parts of some regular second conjugation verbs. Moneo and habeo. Ready? Moneo, monere, monui, monitus. Habeo, habere, habui, habitus. Now let's recite the principal parts of timeo, valeo, doceo, and teneo. So we're doing timeo at the beginning and teneo at the end. Timeo, timere, timui, blank. Valeo, valere, valui, blank. Doceo, docere, docui, doctus. Teneo, tenere, tenui, tentus. Now let's recite the forms of ardeo, eubeo, and moneo, as these both take an S in the third principal part. Ardeo, ardere, arsi, arsus, eubeo, eubere, usi, usus, moneo, monere, monsi, monsus. Well done. Now the forms of gaudeo and caveo. Gaudeo, gaudere, blank, blank. Caveo, cavere, cavi, cautus. Now the forms of sedeo, video, respondeo, and moveo. Ready? Sedeo first. Sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessus. Video, videre, vidi, visus. Respondeo, respondere, respondi, responsus, and moveo, movere, movi, motus. Now let's continue with our second form recitation. Second declension masculine, ER-IR variant. Let's do puer and ager. Ready? Puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero, pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. Now ager. Ager, agree, agro, agrum, agro, agree, agrorum, agris, agros, agris. Well done. Let's recite miser, misera, miserum for wretched. Type 1, first, second declension adjective. Miser, misera, miserum, miseri, misere, miseri, misero, misere, misero, miserum, misera, miserum, misero, misera with a macron, misero. Now the plurals. Miseri, misere, misera, miseror, miserar, miserorum, miseris, 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 miseros, miseras, misera, miseris, miseris, miseris. Man, those datas and avlas and the plurals are easy. Let's recite the third declension istem nouns. Pars partis and mare maris. Remember, these represent the pars partis is the masculine and feminine chart, and mare maris is the neuter chart. Ready? Decline. Pars, partis, parti, partem, parte, partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. Well done. Remember, third I stems have that IUM in the genitive plural. Now, mare, maris. Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. Remember with an I. Maria, marium, maribus, maria, and maribus. Well done with the third I stems. Now, let's recite the type 2 third declension adjective, brevis, breve. And hopefully I won't mess it up this time. Ready? Brevis, brevis, brevi, brevem, brevi, right, with an I. Breves, brevium, brevibus, breves, brevibus. That was the masculine feminine side. Now let's do the neuter. Brevis, breve. Remember, that's the nominative singular of the neuter chart. Begin. Breve, brevis, brevi, breve, brevi. Brevia, brevium, brevibus, brevia, brevibus. Remember that type 2 third declension adjective neuter side is exactly like mare, maris. So once you know mare, maris, as long as you can decline it correctly, you're good to go with brevis. Now, our personal pronouns, beginning with ego. First person, ready? Ego mei, mihi, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. And now the second person, starting with tu. Tu, tui, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Don't forget those double genitives. And also don't forget that the genitives cannot take a possessive meaning. And so we have in their place the possessive pronouns meus, tuus, and noster, nostri, and vester, vestri. So let's just decline meus, mea, meum. It's just like bonus. Ready? Meus, mea, meum, mei, mea, mei, meo, mea, meo, meum, mea, meum, meo, mea, meo. Mei, mea, mea, meor, mear, meor, meis, 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 meos, meas, mea, meis, meis, meis. Man, that was easy. All right, well done. Let's go ahead and recite our ablative prepositions using o ablative. Ready? Amendecum coram prepro, sine ex subtenus. Very good. And let's see if we can do the accusative song without embarrassing ourselves. Let's see. Ready? Ad ante apud in inter ob per post propter sub et trans. And then maybe like we'll do a and many more. Cercum contra juxta. That'll be good. All right, sedete. Good recitation. All right, let's review our Latin sayings that we formerly covered real quick. The bottom of page 40. In coro recitemus, civis Romanus sum, stabat mater, in umbra igitur pugnabimus, video et taceo, cave canem, docere delectare movere. Again, welcome to lesson 12. Let's look at our forms. You'll see that we've included the present systems of the first two conjugations and also sum. The reason for this is the same reason for a plumb line. Let me explain what a plumb line is real quick. Plumb line is used to show exact vertical. You take a weight, just any old weight, tie it to a string, and hold the string up until it stops rocking back and forth. And what you have there is a perfect 90 degrees, a exact vertical, because of course the weight is going to be pointing towards the center of the earth, wherever you are. So that gives you an exact 90 degrees with whatever surface you're standing on, assuming the surface is sort of flat. In Isaiah, God tells Israel, I am holding up a plumb line to you. And he's telling them that they're not exactly plumbed, they're not exactly right. And he's showing them where they're off. Similar with this lesson, we're showing this present system of the first two conjugations to give a contrast to what we're about to show you for the third and fourth conjugations, which do not follow the exact same rules. They're a little different. And so this is just a contrast. It's like, why don't you wear 5 shades of red when you dress up, when you get dressed? Well, because they're going to clash with each other because they're too similar, right? So you wear red and blue or gray and black and these sorts of things. That might be completely off. Well, I'm not a fashion expert. Anyway, the idea is we're going to show you the way you have learned and then show you the contrasting forms, the forms that are a little different. There are a few difficulties with third and fourth conjugations, so it's good to remember how first and second conjugation work. And that will remind you how these conjugations work. There's what I call the standard building process, and that is to build the present system of the first and second conjugation. You go, this does not include sum. You go to the second principal part of the verb, you chop off that RE, and what you have there is called the present stem. To that stem, you add your tense markers and your endings. Now this works for amo, amari, amavi, amatus just as good as it works for moneo, monere, monui, monetus. Only difference between amo and moneo here is the linking vowel. But that's not really too big of a difference because you would find that linking vowel if you chop off the RE from the second principal part. So we chop off the RE from the second principal part of a mo, and we get the linking vowel A, and it's there the whole way. Same for moneo. You chop off the RE from moneo, monere, and you get monet, and you find monet throughout the entire present system. So that's very consistent for first and second conjugation. That's how you build those present system first and second conjugation verbs. That is not the way it is for third and fourth conjugation. What this means is, from now on, recognizing what conjugation a verb is in is crucial. So let me go through this just really quick. The two easy ones, of course, we recognize a conjugation by its principal parts, because these are the forms that are given to us, and this is the way we memorize these verbs. And so that's how we recognize what conjugation they're in. So how do you recognize the families? Well, here the easy ones are first and fourth. First and fourth are a cinch. First conjugation is also called the A conjugation because the linking vowel in the second principal part is that A. A is very strong vowel, very consistent, doesn't change much. Another classic is the fourth conjugation, also called the I conjugation because that I is just all over the place. Audio, audire, with that I there in the second principal part. So that's a real easy conjugation to recognize. The A is first conjugation, the I is fourth conjugation. The difficulty is second and third because they both have the linking vowel of E. But there's several ways to tell them apart. Let me just tell you two real quick. First, second conjugation has a long and strong E in the second principal part. Moneo, monere. They often have a long mark there over that E. That's a strong E, and it basically stays. So you'll see here with monet, that E does not move. It stays the same. But in third conjugation, the E is short. Rego, regere. That E is short. If you're listening for a pronunciation difference, there's not one. I'm not giving one. But in any case, that's a short E, and it's weak. And so that E can lose. It can leave, it can change, and so that's the difficulty with third conjugation, that linking vowel. In any case, this is the standard, a mo and moneo. This is what you're used to with the building process. So now we're going to contrast what we see in third and fourth conjugations. Let's go ahead and look at our vocabulary. It's a long list, but let's go ahead and hack our way through it. Remember, the number 1 there out to the side of those vocab words means that's a regular first conjugation verb. The number 2, of course, means that's a standard, regular second conjugation verb, meaning it follows the principal parts of moneo. Let's begin. Ready? Accuso, to accuse. Adoro, to adore. Ambulo, to walk. Amo, to love or like. Appareo, to appear. Appello, to address. Ardeo, ardere. Arsi, arsus, to burn or be on fire. Auro, to plow. Caveo, cavere, cavi, cautus, to be aware of or to guard against. Cello, to hide. Clamo, to shout. Creo, to create. Culpo, to blame. Debeo, to owe or to ought. Delecto, to delight or to please. Demonstro, to show or to point out. Do, dare, dedi, datus, to give. Docio, docere, docui, doctus, to teach. Dubito, to doubt. Ero, to err or to wander. Exploro, to explore. That's a rough one. Expecto, to wait for or to expect. Another rough one. Gaudeo, gaudere, blank and blank, to rejoice. Habeo, habere, to have. Also to hold, I think, in some sort of circumstances. Habito, to live or to dwell in. To live in or dwell. Eubeo, eubere, usi, usus, to order. Judico, to judge or consider. Juvo, juvare, juvi, utus, to help. Laboro, to work. Laudo, to praise. Lavo, lavare, lavi, lautus, to wash. Libero, to set free. Moneo, manere, mansi, mansus, to remain or to stay. Moneo, monere, monui, monatus, to warn. Moveo, movere, movi, motus, to move. Muto, mutare, mutavi, mutatus, to change. Now, the top of the second column. Naro, to tell. Nato, to swim. Navigo, to sail. Nego, to destroy. To deny, Nuncio, to report. Occupo, to seize. Opugno, to attack. Opto, to desire or wish. Oro, to speak or pray. Paro, to prepare. perturbo, to disturb, porto, to carry, prohibeo, to prevent, pugno, to fight, puto, to think, respondeo, respondere, respondi, responsus, to respond, rogo, to ask, saluto, to greet, sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessus, to sit, servo, to guard or keep, specto, to look at, spero, to hope, sto, stare, steti, status, to stand. Oh, something about sparrow. Remember, the state saying for South Carolina is dum spiro sparrow. While I breathe, that's spiro, I hope, sparrow. Good saying. Supero, to overcome. Taceo, to be silent. Tempto, to tempt. Teneo, tenere, tenui, tentus, to hold. Tereo, a regular second conjugation, to frighten. Timeo, timere, timui, no fourth principal part, to fear or be afraid of. Valeo, valere, valui, to be strong or to be well. Video, videre, vidi, visus, to see. Voco, to call. Volo, to fly. Vulnero, to wound. And the last, sumesse, fui, futurus, to be, our irregular verb to be. So, lesson 12 is mostly given as a contrast to what we're about to study. Remember that standard building process. You go to the second principal part, you chop off the RE, your adjuncts, markers, and your endings. Recite these to mastery, and then I'll see you at lesson 13, the big 1-3. Salvete, amici Latine, and welcome to lesson 13, second form Latin. We're going to be covering the third conjugation present system today. Let's look at our Latin saying. In hoc signo vinces. In this sign you will conquer. In hoc signo vinces. Let's go ahead and do our recitation. Surgite. Let's begin with our tense endings. Ost, mus tis int, bombas bot, bomus botus bont, bo bis bit, bimus bitus bunt. Isti eat, imus istis erunt, eram eras erat, eramus ratus erant, ero eris erit, erimus eritus erunt. Now, the regular principal parts of the first conjugation. Ready? Let's start with the regular principal part endings. O, are, avi, atus. Good. Let's conjugate amo, amare, amavi, amatus. First conjugation. Ready? Amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatus, amat, amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamus, amabatus, amabat, amabo, amabis, amabit, amabimus, amabitus, amabunt. Now the perfect system. Amavi, amavisi, amavit, amavimus, amavisis, amaverunt, amaviram, amaviras, amavirat, amaviramus, amaviratus, amavirant, amaviro, amaviris, amavirit, amavirimus, amaviritus, amavirintendent. Always in the active. Now second conjugation moneo. Ready? From moneo, monere, monui, monetus. Moneo, mones, monate, monemus, monetus, monet, monebam, monebas, monebat, monebamus, monebatus, monebat, monebo, monebis, monebit, monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. Monui, monuisi, monuit, monuimus, monuisis, monuerunt, monueram, monueras, monuerat, monueramus, monueratus, monuerant, monuero, monueris, monuerit, monuerimus, monueritus, monuerintendent. Always in the active. Now the forms assume. Sum es est, sumus est sunt, eram eras erat, eramus eratus erant, ero eris erit, erimus eritus erunt. Fui fuisti fuit, fuimus fuistis, fuerunt, fueram fueras fuerat, fueramus fueratus fuerant, fuero fueris fuerit, fuerimus fueritus fuerintendent. Always in the active. Now let's forget discussion. Let's recite the four irregular principal parts of the first conjugation. Do, sto, uvon, lavo. Do, dare, dedi, datus, sto, stare, steti, status, uvo, uvare, uvi, utus, lavo, lavare, lavi, lautus. Now, the two regular second conjugation verbs, let's do moneo and habeo. Moneo, monere, monui, monotus, habeo, habere, habui, habitus. Now, let's recite a list of second conjugation verbs, and we're going to do them in this order. Timeo, valeo, doceo, teneo, ardeo, ubeo, maneo, gaudeo, caveo, respondeo, video, sedeo, moveo. Here we go. Timeo, timere, timui, valeo, valere, valui, doceo, docere, docui, doctus, teneo, tenere, tinui, tintus, ardeo, ardere, arsi, arsus, ubeo, ubere, usi, usus, maneo manere, mansi mansus, gaudio gaudere, blank and blank, cavio cavere, cavi cautus, respondio respondere, respondi responsus, video vedere, vidi visus, sedeo sedere, sedi sessus, moveo movere, movi motus. Well done. If you need to hear those again, just rewind and do it again. All right, let's recite our second form recitations. Second declension masculine, ER, IR variants. Let's do ager and vir. Ager, agree, agro, agrum, agro, agree, agorum, agrees, agros, agrees. Now vir, viri. Vir, viri, viro, virum, viro, viri, virorum, viris, viros, viris. Now integer. Integra, integrum. Type 1, first and second declension adjective of the ER variety. Integer, integra, integrum, integree, integrate, integree, integro, integrate, integro, integrum, integram, integrum, integro, integra with a macron, integro, integree, integrate, integra, integrum, integram, integorum. These are the plurals, by the way. Integrees, 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 integros, integras, integra, integrees, integrees, integrees. Well done. Remember, adjectives of all types match the nouns they modify in gender, number, and in case. Let's recite our third declension I stem nouns, pars partis. Ready? Pars partis, parti, partem, parte, partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. That iu in the genitive plural is what marks it. Let's decline brevis, breve, type 2, third declension adjective, following loosely the third I stems. Here we go. Brevis, breve. Let's do the masculine feminine side first. Brevis, brevis, brevi, brevim, brevi. Breves, brevium, brevibus, breves, brevibus. Now the neuters. Breve, brevis, brevi, breve, brevi. Brevia, brevium, brevibus, brevia, brevibus. Well done. Now let's recite our first person and second person personal pronouns. Ego, ready? Ego mei, mici, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. Second person. Tu, tui, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Good recitation. Now let's recite our O ablative song to remember our prepositions from the ablative. Ready? Abendicum coram prepro, sine ex subtenus. Well done. All right, sedete. Good recitation. Again, welcome to lesson 13. This lesson is on the third conjugation. Now, present system. We've already covered first and second conjugations in both the present and the perfect systems. Today, we're just going to focus on the present system of the third conjugation. First, let's just go through the forms. Here we go. Rego. Rego, regis, regit. Regimus, regitus, regunt. Okay. Regibam, regibas, regibat. Regibamus, regibatus, regibant. All right. Regam, rejace, rejate, rejamus, rejatus, regent. Whoa! Okay, so the present system wasn't that bad. Imperfect was actually kind of expected. Regibam, that's kind of expected there. But then regam, whoa! Regam, rejace, rejate. Okay, that's really different. So you can see here already the third conjugation does not follow the standard building process. That's for first and second conjugation. Third conjugation, I have all kinds of memory tricks and ways to help you remember this. I'm just going to give them all to you. Instead of choosing among them, I'm just going to throw them all to you. Okay. Memory trick number 1. You can actually just use memory tricks to remember these vowel changes. You can see that the main difference between the second building process and the standard building process and what's going on here is that the stem vowel has changed. So in present tense, while we would expect an E, because we go to the second principal part, we get rejet, and we should add our tense markers and endings, we expect an E there. That's not what we get. This I comes in instead. And in fact, we have all three of the vowels, O, the I, and the U. Okay. Now, imperfect's not that bad because actually, you get what you expect. You go to the second principal part, you chop off the RE, you add your bomb, boss, bot, and you're done. So that's imperfect is pretty respectable there. Now, the future is a complete departure. You expect bobus bit here because that's the usual tense marker, but that is completely gone. And you get mostly E's except for that first person singular form. So there's a lot going on here. I think perhaps the easiest way to remember the vowel changes in the third conjugation present system is to just memorize them. So I use for this system in the third conjugation what I call memory tricks. So forget the standard building process. It won't work for third conjugation present system. Let's do these memory tricks. Now here's how these memory tricks work. I give you the endings for the first two forms. And then the second form I say, all the rest of the forms of that tense will follow that form. Here are my memory tricks. For the present tense, the memory trick is ois. because those are the first two endings on your parts, your forms there for the present tense. So we have rego, regis. So ois is my memory trick there for present tense. In the imperfect tense, I just say ebom, ebos. Notice I'm including the vowel because we expect the vowel here and we get it. Ebom, ebos. And then all the other forms are going to follow ebos. So ebot, ebomus, ebotus, ebon. Okay? So ois, ebom, ebos. And in the future, we say ace. Now again, all of the forms will follow ace. All the rest of them are e's, and e is a very strong vowel, and so e stays e, even in the third person plural. Regent, you see there. So, ois, ebamibas, ace, in all three of these memory trick cases, all the forms of that tense follow your second memory trick. So, for instance, let's consider rego, regis, ois, then they all follow is. Eat, emus, eatus, unt. Oh, but we expect this, do we not? What's the rule here that would make this I become a U? That's right, I becomes U in the face of N, and that rule holds here. And so I can kind of think of this as an I, knowing that that rule that I becomes U in the face of N is going to change it anyway. So consider that. The memory tricks work ois, ebom, ebos, and ames, so that I give you your first form, which is very strange, and your second form will be followed by all the rest of the forms in that tense. The second memory method involves a story involving the embattled tribe of E. The embattled tribe of E, it receives an initial attack from the bully vowels I, O, and U. So in the present in the present tense, the embattled tribe of E gets attacked by I, O, and U, and it completely loses. It's a massive failure. So the E is completely gone from the present tense. And I say the embattled tribe of E because E is the expected linking vowel for third, right? You go to the second principal part, you chop off that R-E. There you got it. You have the E. But in the present tense, they get attacked by I, O, and U, and it's a complete victory for I, O, U, and the E is completely gone. But the imperfect rallies, they arm themselves, and they return back to fight off the I, O, U, and they completely win. It's a grand victory in the imperfect tense. The E is back with its tense marker. We're all good. But as with most nations that have conquered another, there is, in the third and fourth generations, excess. And so E goes way too far and gets rid of Bobis Bit. It's gone now. And it mostly wins. It loses the first round. It gets Regam, so the A comes in. It's another kind of flanking attack from the side. So the A comes in, that first person singular, Regam. But then the E wins all other 5 of the battles. And so it completely takes over again. So the little tribe of E, and it's attacked by IOU and completely loses. So we have IOU in the present tense. Then the embattled tribe of E comes back and wins. A complete victory, getting a bomb of Asabat, a bomb of Sabat. And then there's another side attack by a third element, the A, and although E is unexpecting it and loses that first round, getting us Regam, it wins all the other 5 subsequent battles, completely taking over the future. To the exclusion of Bobis Bit. It's even gone. The third memory trick is kind of a silly one. Like the other 2 are serious, right? Anyway, the third one is how do you remember, why are third conjugation verbs considered old maids? An old maid, by the way, is considered to be a lady who is not married and is past marrying age. Okay, so an old maid, why are third conjugation verbs considered old maids? Reason, because they have no bows in their future. And by bow, I'm referencing bo, bis, bit, because there's no bo, bis, bit in the future. But the double meaning is the word beau, meaning boyfriend or suitor. Previously, it's not really used very much anymore. So those are my 3 memory tricks. Remember what you do is you go to the second principal part, you chop off the RE, but you also chop off the linking vowel, and you just get reg. And to the reg, you add your memory tricks. Ois for the present, bombos for the imperfect, ace for the future. Ois, ebamibos, ois, ebam, ebos, and ace, added to the root of the verb, which comes from the second principal part, and removing the RE and the linking vowel. The second memory trick is the embattled tribe of E. It's attacked completely by IOU. It comes back in the imperfect for ebam, ebos, and then it receives another attack from A, but although it loses the first round and gets Regam, it wins all the subsequent 5 battles, and E completely takes over the future to the exception of Bobis Bit. And the third memory trick, third conjugation verbs are old maids because they have no bows in their future. So, While these things, these forms, seem a little disappointing because they're so much different from what you've seen before, be consoled by the following 4 facts. Fact number 1. These personal endings are exactly identical to what you're used to. So OST moves to sent, stand strong. So that's good. Second thing, the imperfect is completely regular. So we don't see any shocking things in the imperfect. And actually, it follows the standard building process. If you look really closely, it takes that E. That's really good. So imperfect is normal. Third, the fourth conjugation is very, very similar to the third. So you've really crossed the mountains here. And in the fourth, we just take a few more steps to get to the next peak. So it's no big deal. So fourth is very similar to third. And finally, the perfect system of the entire conjugations, all 4 of them, is the same for all of them. So you've already learned the perfect system, so it'll be very easy to acquire it for the third and fourth. Same process will hold in play. Okay, let's look at our vocab. Dico, dicere, to say or to tell. Duco, ducere, to lead. Figo, figere, to fix or to fasten. I always think of the fig leaves that Adam and Eve used to fix or fasten some clothing around themselves. If you've ever seen a fig leaf, you know why they picked this tree. Fig leaves are huge. It would not take very many fig leaves to get a full dress. No problem at all. They're like this big, so it wouldn't be any problem at all. Anyway, Jungo, jungere, to join or connect. I'm convinced, but I don't have any proof, that we get the word jungle from this. In a jungle, all the vegetation is connected, and so you have to, hack through it with a machete sometimes because it's just overgrown. But I think we get the word jungle from this word connect. Rego, regere, to rule. Struo, struere, to build or to construct. Traho, trahere, to drag or to haul. Veho, vehere, to carry, convey, or transport. Of course, we get the word vehicle from this. Vivo, vivere, to live or to be alive. Vinco, vincere, to conquer. Vinco is the word from which we get the I came part of the I conquered part of I came, I saw, I conquered. Vini, vidi, vici. The vici is the third principal part of this verb. So this verb goes vinco, vincere, vici, victus. So that vici is that perfect tense for the third conjugation. So that completes lesson 13. Well done. This is a high peak that you've come across. Remember the things about third conjugation. There are 3 ways to remember. 1, the memory tricks. Ois, ebamabas, ames. All of those added to the root. That is the second principal part, chopping off the RE and the linking vowel. If you connect those memory tricks to the root, ois, ebamabas, ames, you get your third conjugation present system. Second is the embattled tribe of E. Remember, E is overtaken by the IOUs, and then E comes back with a stunning victory in the imperfect and completely is all back. Regebon, regebos, regebot. E is completely taken over the imperfect. And then it gets another flank attack from the A, but though it loses the first battle in that regam, it wins all the subsequent battles, getting reges, regate, regemus, regatus, regent. Don't be fooled by that E in the third person plural. E is a very strong vowel, and it will not change like I does in the face of N. So keep that E. Well done in the third conjugation. I'll see you in the next lesson. Salvete, amici Latini, and welcome to Second Form Latin, Lesson 14. This lesson we're going to be covering the fourth conjugation present system. But enough about that. Let's get to our recitation. Surgite, regitemus. Our personal endings. Ready? O-S-T, mus tis int. Bom bas bot, bomus botus bont. Bo bis bit, bimus bitus bunt. The perfect system. E is to eat, emus istis erunt. Eram eras erat, eramus eratus erant. Ero eris erit, erimus eritus er intendent. Always in the active. I hope now while you're reciting, you're checking your watch and looking at the arrangements of the books on the shelf, because by now this should be so simple that you don't even have to, you can think about other things. Like you're probably thinking of calculus problems in your head and solving them, right? While we're doing this, that's really good. That's exactly what you should be doing. Let's now let's conjugate amo, amari, amavi, amatus, a classic first conjugation verb. Go. Amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatus, amant. Amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamus, amabatus, amabant. Amabo, amabis, amabit, amabimus, amabitus, amabunt. Now the perfect system. Amavi, amavisi, amavit, amavimus, amavisis, amavirunt, amaviram, amaviras, amavirat, amaviramus, amaviratus, amavirant, amaviro, amaviris, amavirit, amavirimus, amaviritus, amavirintendit. Always in the active. Now let's conjugate moneo, monere, monui, monetus, another classic second conjugation verb. Here we go. Moneo, mones, monate, monemus, monetus, monet, monebam, monebas, monebat, monebamus, monebatus, monebat, monebo, monebis, monebit, monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. Monui, monuisi, monuit, monuimus, monuisis, monuarunt, monuaram, monuaras, monuarat, monuaramus, monuaratus, monuarant, monuaro, monuaris, monuarit, monuarimus, monuaritus, monuir, and indent. Always in the active. Well done. Now let's conjugate sum. All the forms of sum are irregular verb to be. From sum esse fui, futurus. Ready? Sum ess, sumus estus sunt. Iram, iras, irat, iramus, iratus, irant. Iro, iris, irit, irimus, iritus, irunt. Fui, fuisti, fuit, fuimus, fuistus, fuerunt, fueram, fueras, fuerat, fueramus, fueratus, fuerant, fuero, fueris, fuerit, fuerimus, fueritus, fuerintintent. Always in the active. Well done. Now let's look at the regular first conjugation principal part endings. O, are, avi, atus, as seen in amo, amare, amavi, amatus. Let's think about the four exceptions, do, sto, uvo, and lavo. Ready? Do, dare, dedi, datus. Sto, stare, steti, status. Uvo, uvare, uvi, utus. Lavo, lavare, lavi, and lautus. Well done. Now let's recite the regular principal parts that you'll see in second conjugation. There's quite a few of them. There's lots of variety in second conjugation, so let's start with habeo, the regular one. Habeo, habere, habui, habitus. Now the four timeo, valeo, docio, and tineo. Ready? Timeo, timere, timui, blank, valeo, valere, valui, blank, docio, docere, docui, doctus, tineo, tenere, tinui, tintus. Well done. Now ardeo, eubeo, and moneo. Ready? Ardeo, ardere, arsi, arsus, eubeo, eubere, usi, usus, moneo, monere, monsi, monsus. Notice all the S's in that group. Next group beginning with gaudeo. We're going to do gaudeo and caveo. Ready? Gaudeo, gaudere, and then two blanks. Caveo, cavere, cavi, cautus. Next is sedeo and video. Ready? Sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessus, video, vedere, vidi, visus. So this had D in the third principal part, and then it went S in the fourth. Last group, respondio and moveo. Respondeo, respondere, respondi, responsus, moveo, movere, movi, motus. Well done. Let's continue with our second form recitation. First, our noun endings real quick. Ready? A, arm, is, as, is. Us, o, is, os, is. E, o, a, is, a, is. Blank is, ma, ace, ibus, ace, ibus. Blank is, blank a, ibus, a, ibus. Fourth, us, ui, us, ibus, ibus. And fifth, ace, ma, ace, arum, abus, ace, abus. Well done. Now, a second declension masculine er, ir variant. Let's do puer and vir. Ready? Puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero, pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. Now vir. Vir, viri, viro, virum, viro, viri, virorum, viris, viros, viris. Well done. Now let's recite integer, integrat, integrum. Integer, integrat, integrum. Integree, integrate, integree, integro, integrate, integro, integrum, integram, integrum, integro, integral with macron, integro. Plurals, integree, integrate, integrat, integrorum, integram, integorum, integris, 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 integros, integras, integra, integris, integris, integris. Man, was that simple. Let's do the third declension I stem, parse, and mare. Ready? Remember the IUM and the genitive plural. Parse, partis, parti, partim, parte, partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. Now mare, maris. Ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. Remember that I right there. Maria, marium, maribus, maria, maribus. So that's mare. Third I stem neuter. Now, following these pretty closely is brevis, breve, a type 2 third declension adjective. Let's do the masculine feminine chart first. Ready? Brevis, brevis, brevi, brevrim, brevi. Breves, brevium, brevibus, breves, brevibus. Now, the neuter side of brevis really follows mare, beginning with breve. Ready? Breve, brevis, brevi, breve, brevi, brevia, brevium, brevibus, brevia, brevibus. Follows it perfectly. That neuter chart for brevis. Let's recite our personal pronouns, beginning with ego. Ready? Ego, me, miki, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, double genitive, nobis, nos, nobis. Second person, for you. Tu, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Well done. If you'll recall, the genitives of these personal pronouns cannot take a possessive meaning, which means we have a whole set of possessive pronouns, meus, noster, tuus, and vester. So really, meus, mea, meum, noster, nostrin, noster, nostra, nostrum, tuus, tua, tuum, and vester, vestra, vestrum. So those are 120 forms for the 120? Yeah, 120 forms for the personal pronouns. Now let's recite the prepositions that take the ablative case. Ready? Ab coram cum de ex and pre, prosine subtenus. And now, prepositions that take the accusative. Ready? To the tune of Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread. You know, it's one of the top 40 hits. Ad ante apud, in inter op, per post propter sub et trans. And then, circum contra juxta. Right? Very good. Okay, let's go ahead and recite. Let's recite the present system of rego, third conjugation. Ready? Remember, it's ois, ebamibos, ames, added to the root, which is reg. Here we go. Rego, regis, regit, regimus, regitus, regunt, regibam, regibas, regibat, regibamus, regibatus, regibant, regam, reges, regate, regimus, regatus, regent. Notice that change in pattern because you don't have that bobis in the future there. All right, very good. Well done. Good recitation. Sedete. All right, again, welcome to lesson 14. That recitation is a lot of grammar to get through, isn't it? But it should be becoming a part of you, because you should be saying it every time you do the lesson. Every time you sit down and do Latin, just rattle through some of your grammar forms. You don't have to do all of them, but rotate them so you're doing most of them doing most of them each time. In lesson 14, we're going to be covering the fourth conjugation present system. And third and fourth are kind of a little family. They hang together. First and second were a family too. They followed that standard building process. Third and fourth do as well. And so fourth is like the little mountain peak above the one you just conquered. Often when I used to go hiking a lot, when I lived in a state that had anything close to what you could call a hill or mountain, there's often a false peak. So you're climbing, and you're seeing the peak ahead of you because you can't really see beyond it. You're thinking, oh, I'm at the top. And you finally get there and you're like, this isn't the top. The top is another level up. But you've already made most of the ascent to the mountain. So you've gone all the way up to third conjugation. And now the fourth conjugation is just a few more steps. So you don't have to reclimb the mountain again. You've mostly made it. So you just have to jump that extra bit. It's sort of like when the animals were trying to decide who was going to be king. I'm sure you've heard this story before. And so they decided for some reason that whoever could get the highest was going to be king. And so an eagle, of course, flew really high, and he flew as high as he could. He passed all the other birds. And then there was a sparrow on his back, and the sparrow just kept flying up a few more feet and saying, I'm king, I'm king. And so the eagle would fly higher and higher into the thin air, and the sparrow would just be on his back the whole time. And so he would just jump up a few more feet and say, I'm king, I'm king. So it's just exactly like this with the fourth conjugation. The third conjugation is that eagle. It's taking us all the way up. Fourth conjugation is that little sparrow just flap a little bit more, and we get the fourth conjugation. So it's just a few steps away. Third and fourth are very similar. And let's look at the forms real quick for audio, and we'll see why. Let's recite them. Ready? Audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditus, audiunt. Audiebam, audiebas, audiebat, audiebamus, audiebatus, audiebant. Audiam, audiace, audiate, audiemus, audietus, audient. A few things I want to point out. Notice how I pronounced very carefully all the vowels. Present tense, third person plural. I said audiunt. Pronounce that. For the imperfect, I was the whole time. I wasn't saying audibam. I was saying audiebam, audiebas. You do that too. The accuracy of your memory will be directly connected to the accuracy of your pronunciation, because we store things in your head by way of saying them out loud. And so if you're saying them out loud into your ear incorrectly, they're going to get stored incorrectly. So pronounce them carefully. And notice the future. Audiam, audiace, audiate. I said them all. So you do the same. I'm sure you noticed the similarities. So let's talk a little bit about these. First of all, with audio audire, let me go back a little bit. With rego, regere, that linking vowel E in regere, chop off the RE, that linking vowel E, that is a short vowel. And so it was weak. And we saw in the third conjugation what the weakness produced. The IOU came in with the takeover, then the E resurged back on the imperfect, and then it lost the battle with and so that E was leaving, going, changing, mixing. So that short E in rego, regere, was weak and short. In contrast to the fourth conjugation here, the I in the second principal part is long and strong. So it's not going to move. And you can see how it's cemented. Look at these forms. Is there any form on this chart that does not have an I? There's not. The I is everywhere. Fourth conjugation is often called the I conjugation for good reason. You'll see that I from the second principal part is retained and remained throughout all three of these tenses, the whole present system. So consider the rule in the second bullet point, page 45. The fourth conjugation is essentially the same as the third, with the addition of the stem vowel I in all the forms, unless they already have an I. So they all get an I in the present system. For fourth conjugation, they all get an I, but you're not going to have a double I. So you're not going to see audeo, audee. So we're not going to do that. If it already has an I, we're not going to give it another one, right? So every form, fourth conjugation, present system, gets an I unless it already has one, in which case it won't get one. It won't get an extra one. Also, you can think of fourth conjugation as there being another set of memory tricks. Remember, for the third conjugation, we had ois, ebam ebas, am es. For the fourth conjugation, they're very similar. Eo, is, eabam, eabas, eam, eas. It's basically the same. It's almost exactly the same memory tricks, except there's a few more I's. That's about it. Well done. So this really connects the third and fourth conjugation. They both take these memory tricks. There's some vowel changes. They don't have the bows in the future, so there's this connection here. So first and second, they follow that standard building process. Second principal part, you chop off the area, you add your tense markers and your ending. It's very regular. Third and fourth, not so much. Third has that weak E. Fourth has that strong I. There's no bows in the future for either of them. So you see the connection here. In rego, we were saying rego, regis, regit. For audio, we're saying audio, audis, audit. Very similar. In the imperfect, for the third, we were saying regibam, regibas, regibat. Now for the fourth, we're saying audiabam, audiabas, audiabas. So there's that extra vowel. Now for the future, in the third, we were saying regam, reges, regate. Now for the fourth, we're saying audiam, audies, audiate. One thing I want to point out, though, that the fourth has that looks very dissimilar from the third, and that is the third person plural of the present system. Look, notice, it's not audunt, it's aud-i-unt. Now that follows our rule that all the forms get an I unless they already have one. So presumably somewhere back in the fourth conjugation past, this form was just audunt. The unt was just going to be added on, but all these forms got the extra I, and that one didn't have one, so it got an I and it became aud-i-unt. So it follows the rule. All the forms in the present system, fourth conjugation, get an I unless they already have one. So let's conjugate a few of these words in your vocab as we go through and listen for that pattern of conjugation. Here we go. Let's do dormio. Dormio, dormis, dormit, dormimus, dormitus, dormiunt. Dormiabam, dormiabas, dormiabat, dormiabamus, dormiabatus, dormiabat, dormiam, dormies, dormiate, dormiemus, dormietus, dormient. Notice again, the E is a very strong vowel. It does not change in the face of N like I used to. Let's do a really funky sounding one. Shio, shire. Here we go. Ready? Shio, shis, sheet, shimus, sheetus, shiunt. Shiabam, shiabas, shiabat, shiabamus, shiabatus, shiabat. Shiam, shiate, shiate, shiemus, shiatus, shient. So it just sounds a little funny, but the endings are the same. You take all the forms get the I unless they already had one, and it's the same memory tricks basically as the third conjugation. Let's do vinio, venire. You're going to see a lot of kinds of words connected to vinio. There's vinio, venire. There's convinio, convenire. Invinio, invenire. Odd vinio, odd venire. So it's kind of one of those base words, like eo. You get eo, exio, inio, audio, abio. So there's all sorts of forms. Just add a prefix on the front. So let's do vinio for to come. Ready? Vinio, venis, venit, venimus, venitus. That's right, viniunt. Now you say them. Viniabat. Viniabant. That's right. Viniemus, vinietus, vinient. Well done. Very good. So that's the fourth conjugation, very much like third. Now let's look at our vocab and go through it real quick. Audio, audire, to hear. Of course, auditory or auditorium, a place you go to hear something, right? Dormio, dormire, to sleep. You go to college, you're going to sleep in a dormitory. It's a place of sleeping, right? Finio, finire, to finish or to limit. Impedio, impedire, to hinder or obstruct. So if you impede someone from learning, you are hindering them. In fact, this is the one rule in my classrooms. We do one thing in my classrooms. We learn the subject. I teach it, you learn it. And if anyone you're doing anything that disturbs that, either me teaching or someone else learning, you have broken my rule. So I don't have any problem with you guys, though. You're pretty well behaved. All right. Invenio, invenire, to discover or to find out. That's one of those cognates of venio. You see, it's just venio with an N attached. So literally with invenio, you come into. And this is how you find something, right? Where's my keys? And you're always, you look and then your hand comes into your pocket and you pull them out. Aha! So that's how you find something. Munio, munire, to fortify or protect. So ammunition. Natio, nascire, to not know. Look at the connection here with shio. It's just shio with an N-E on it. Now, sentio, sentire, to know, to feel, think, perceive, understand. A lot of meanings for that. I think we just have to feel here. So sensation, sensitive, all the sorts of those derivatives. Shio, shire, to know. So this is where we get our word for science. It's kind of nice. Or conscience. Very good. Venio, venire, to come. Okay, that completes lesson 14. Fourth conjugation present system. Remember, in the fourth conjugation present system, all the forms that don't have an I already get an I. And the memory tricks are basically the same. Eis, eabom, eabos, and eam, eas. Very similar to the third conjugation, which is ois, ebom, ebos, am, es. Very similar, just looking for that I. So, well done with the fourth conjugation. You now know the present system of all four conjugations, and now we will turn our attention to the perfect system, and we'll see if we can complete that very quickly. I'll see you in the next lesson. Salvete, amici Latini, and welcome to Second Form Latin, Lesson 15. We're going to be covering third IO verbs today, but first let's do a recitation. Surgite, recitemus. I want to recite the personal endings, the tense endings, for only the present system of the present system of the first and second conjugation. Here we go. Ost, mus tis int, bom bos bot, bomus botis bont, bo bis bit, bimus bitis bunt. Good. Now let's conjugate amo, amare, amavi, amatus in just the present system. Amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatus, amat, amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamus, amabatus, amabant, amabo, amabis, amabit, amabimus, amabitus, amabunt. Now let's do just the present system of moneo, monere, monui, monetus. Ready? Moneo, mones, monate, monebus, monetus, monent, monebam, monebas, monebat, monebamus, monebatus, monebant, monebo, monebis, monebit, monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. Now let's do third conjugation. Let's just skip the perfect system. Let's do third conjugation present system. Rego, regere. Ready? Rego, regis, regit, regimus, regitus, regunt, regibam, regibas, regibat, regibamus, regibatus, regibant, regam, reges, regate, regimus, regatus, regent. Now let's do fourth conjugation. Audio, audire. Ready? Audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditus, audiunt. Adiabam, adiabas, adiabat, adiabamus, adiabatus, adiabant, adiam, adies, adiate, adiemus, adietus, audient. Now just the present system of sum. Ready? Sum est, sumus est sunt, eram eras erat, eramus eratus erat, ero eris erit, erimus eritus erunt. Well done. Now let's recite the regular endings for the first conjugation principal parts. O, are, avi, atus, as in voco, vocare, vocavi, vocatus, or amo, amari, amavi, amatus. Now the irregulars, sto, do, sto, uvo, and lavo. Ready? Do, dare, dedi, datus, sto, stare, steti, status, uvo, uvare, uviutus, lavo, lavare, lavi, lautus. Now the second conjugation principal parts, beginning with habeo, the regular one. Habeo, habere, habui, habitus. Now timeo, valeo, docio, and teneo. Ready? Timeo, timere, timui, blank. Valeo, valere, valui, blank. docio docere, docui doctus, teneo tenere, tenui tentus. Well done. Now, the three ardeo, eubeo, and monio that get the S in the third and fourth principal parts. Ardeo, ardere, arsi, arsus, eubeo, eubere, usi, usus, monio, monere, monsi, monsus. Now, gaudio and caveo. Ready? Gaudio, gaudere, blank, blank, cavio, cavere, cavi, cautus. Now, the two seteo and video that have the D in the third principal part, but the S in the fourth. Ready? Seteo and video. Seteo, sedere, sedi, sessus, video, videre, vidi, visus. Now, respondeo and moveo. Respondeo, respondere, respondi, responsus, moveo, movere, movi, motus. Well done. Now, continue with our forms from the second form. Let's do second declension masculine, ER, IR variants, agere, agree. Ready? Agere, agree, agro, agrum, agro, agree, agorum, agrees, agros, agrees. Well done. Now let's recite miser, misera, miserum. Type 1, first, second declension adjective. Miser, misera, miserum. Miseri, misere, miseri. Misero, misere, misero. Miserum, misera, miserum. Misero, misera with the macron, misero. Now the plurals. Miseri, misere, misera. Miseror, miserar, miserorum. Miseris, miseris, miseris. Miseros, miseras, misera, and miseris, miseris, miseris. Well done. All right, now the third declension I stems, pars and mare. Ready? Pars, partis, parti, partem, parte. Partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus, and mare, the third I stem neuter. Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. Maria, mariu, maribus, maria, and maribus. Now, a third declension type 2 adjective that mostly follows pars and mare. Ready? Brevis, breve. Well, let's do gravis, grave today. Ready? Gravi, because we're serious and heavy today. That's severe. Here we go. Ready? Gravis, gravis, gravi, gravem, gravi. Graves, gravium, gravibus, graves, gravibus. Now the neuters. Grave, gravis, gravi, grave, gravi. Gravia, gravium, gravibus, gravia, gravibus. Of course, this follows the neuter rule and has that I in the ablative singular in both of those genders. Now, let's decline our first and second person personal pronouns, beginning with ego. Ready? Ego me, miki, me. Nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. And tu, tui, tibi, te. Vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Don't forget those double genitives in the plural, and also that the genitive does not express possession. Does not express possession. For that, we have the possessive pronoun adjectives. Meus, mea, meum, noster, nostra, nostrum, tuus, tua, tuum, and vester, vestra, vestrum, following regular second type 1 first, second declension adjective forms. All right, let's recite all the prepositions that take the ablative. Ob coram cum de ex in pre, prosine subtenus. Now let's recite all the prepositions that take the accusative, using the top 40 hit Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread. Ad ante apud, in inter ob, per post propter, sub et trans. And of course, cercum contra juxta. Okay, very good. Those are the prepositions that take the accusative case. Good recitation. Sedete. Again, welcome to second form Latin, lesson 15. Let's look at our Latin saying for the day. Tempus fugit. Time flies. Tempus fugit. Lesson 15 covers a different conjugation, and actually a fifth one. Better said, it's a subgroup of the third conjugation. They're called third IO verbs. And if you look at the principal parts, you can tell why we call them that. They look like third conjugation verbs. Look at that infinitive. You have capere. Well, there's an E in the second principal part. There's not an E in the first principal part. That's a classic third conjugation verb. Except what we're used to is having an ERE in the second principal part, but not having any other vowels besides that O in the first principal part. But that's not what we have here. Instead of no vowels at all, we get IO, which is why they're called third IO verbs. The second principal part looks like that third conjugation, and the first principal part has that IO, so they're third IOs. It's not like a friend of mine who was born and raised in Canada, in Saskatchewan. He said it's a place that's so flat you can watch your dog run away for 5 complete days. You know, 4th day it's still out there running because it's so flat. Now, he is a Canadian through and through. But he's been in America for close to a decade now and has really stopped sounding like a Canadian. So he mostly just talks like an American, as if he were born and raised here, and with no other accents or anything like that. But occasionally, instead of saying about, he'll say a boot. It'll just come out real sharp. I want to tell you about something, he'll say. And it'll just jump out at you. This is like the last vestige of his Canadian accent returning just a little bit. Sort of like I used to be a rock climber. But the only way you would know that is that I happen to have a 60-meter rope in the back of my closet. But it's the last vestige of my rock climbing. I don't have chalk. I don't have gear. I don't have shoes. I don't go climbing ever. I've totally given it up. But I got a rope and a couple carabiners. Okay, so just the last vestige of this climbing days and the last vestige of my friend's Canadian accent sort of hangs on. It's like that with these verbs. They look like third, but only in the infinitive. In every other way, they look and act like fourth conjugation. Only that infinitive is that it's like that last vestige of third. It's that last hanging on. It's like when you're saying goodbye to someone on the train. You're getting on the train. You're leaving your friend on the platform, and you're, I don't want to leave you, right? And you're holding onto their hand at the last moment. This is if you're in a movie and it's real dramatic. Right? You're holding. You're basically on the train. The train's moving. You're heading off, but you're holding onto their hand for the last minute. It's kind of like that. These third IO verbs, they only look like third in that infinitive. Every other way, they look like fourth conjugation. So said another way, this is like when you ask your mom, well, why can't we, or why this, why that? And she says, the ominous because, right? Oh, that's a bad answer, because she's just pulling the authority card, right? Which she's totally allowed to do, but just because I said so, basically. Now that can be a bad day, but here's a worse day. Your dad comes in the room and he's got some bad news for you. He puts his arm around you and he says, life's not fair. Boy, whatever comes after that is not going to be good. So he starts out with a life's not fair speech. Uh-oh. But I'm going to have to start this lesson out that way. Life is not fair. For all the other conjugations, I have this logical building process, or here's what's happening with the vowels, and here's these easy memory tricks. I can't do that for third IO. Life's not fair. Life gets complicated. God's got other plans for you. When you think you got it all figured out, he's gonna throw a monkey wrench in there just to show you that you're not necessarily in control. Same with this lesson. These third IOs, they look like third, they act like fourth, but I don't have a clean explanation for how that stem from the second principal part gets to become a fourth. If I went into that, it would be like jumping into a jungle. You're in the jungle, you touch one vine, it curls around your fingers, and you're like, ugh, and you're pulling. As you're pulling away from that one, you get it connected to another vine, and soon you're trapped and it's pulling you down. Right, so we don't want to get into that. Let's not get into the mess. They simply look like third conjugation in the second principal part, but in every other way, they act like fourth conjugation verbs. In fact, so enough of that. Let's look at the forms real quick. So the principal parts are capio, capere. But look at the forms. Capio, capis, capit, capimus, capitis. Look at this form. Capiunt. Just like fourth, right? Audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditus, audiunt. Just like fourth. Okay, let's look at the imperfect. Capiabam, capiabas, capiabat, capiabamus, capiabatus, capiabant. Did you hear that IE all the way through? Just like fourth. Just like fourth. Okay, let's look at the future. Capiam, capies, capiate, capiemus, capietus, capient. My goodness, just like fourth conjugation. So the mystery here, I think, is maybe why they're called third conjugation IOs, when everything about them is fourth, except the infinitive in their principal parts. But in all fairness, we define what conjugation verbs are in by the vowel in their infinitive, and so we have to call it third by our own rules. But this is a funky form. In every other way, it behaves like fourth. So a simple saying for third IO verbs is this. Third IO verbs, their principal parts look like third, but in every other way, they act like fourth. Look at these forms in the present system, just like fourth conjugation. Now let's look at our vocabulary real quick. Capio, capere, to take or to seize. We get the word capture from this, captivate. Cupio, cuperi, to desire or to wish for. Cupid came from this. Facio, facere, to make or to do. When I was ripping up the floors in my old house, and I bought a house that's like 93 years old, it's very, very old, we decided to rip up all the floors, and we pulled an inch of material off my kitchen floor, so it was like wood, tile, wood, tile, wood, tile. And so we were pulling it up, and the best method we found was to use this big metal bar with a 6-inch blade on the end, and we would just scrape and scrape and scrape. And a friend of mine came over to help me scrape, and he said, let's call this the facite bar. A facite is just the imperative form of this word. It just means do or make, because it was so great, because it just got the job done. It was just making the job happen. So that facite bar was great. It even became famous, and people were asking me for can I have that facite bar? All right, so faccio, facere, to make or do. Fugio, fugere, to flee, of course, a fugitive. Yaccio, yacere, to throw. Now, I've pronounced all of these a little differently than you may have expected. I'm saying capio, capere. Notice how I'm making that E in the infinitive short. That is the reason why these forms take fourth conjugation forms, because that E is soft, just like the third conjugation. Remember, rego, regere. So that ERE in the third conjugation is short, it's soft, it's weak, and so changes can happen when you have a weak vowel. The vowel can combine with other vowels. The vowel can get kicked away completely, and other vowels can come in. Only in that fourth conjugation do you have that strong I that stays. But here, this third IO verbs, they're defined by that infinitive with that short, soft E. And so the fourth comes in like a flood and takes over. So this completes lesson 15. Remember, life's not fair. Third IO verbs, they look like third, they act like fourth, meaning their principal parts, particularly that infinitive, looks like a third conjugation verb, because that's how we define our conjugations. But in every other way, it acts like fourth. Let's go ahead and conjugate all of our vocab words, since there's not very many of them, and there's not very many forms to learn here. So let's conjugate these. Ready? We've already done copio, so let's do cupio. Cupio, cupis, cupit, cupimus, cupitus, cupiunt. Cupiabam, cupiabas, cupiabat, cupiabamus, cupiabatus, cupiabant. Cupiam, cupies, cupiate, cupiemus, cupietus, cupient. Third IO verbs, they look like third. That's right, they act like fourth. Let's do faccio, facire. Faccio, facere. Ready? Faccio, facis, facit, facimus, facitus, faciunt. Faciabam, faciabas, faciabat, faciabamus, faciabatus, faciabant. Faciam, facies, faciate, faciemus, facietus, facient. Well done. Now, fugio. Ready? Fugio, fugis, fugit, fugimus, fugitus, fugiunt. Fugiabam, fugiabas, fugiabat, fugiabamus, fugiabatus, fugiabant. Fugiam, fugies, fugiate, fugiemus, fugietus, fugient. Again, they look like third. That's right, they act like fourth. Let's do yaccio. Ready? Yaccio. Yacis, yacit, yacimus, yacitus, yaciunt. Yaciabam, yaciabas, yaciabat, yaciabamus, yaciabatus, yaciabant. Yaciam, yacies, yaciate, yaciemus, yacietus, yacient. Well done. Salvete, amici Latini, and welcome to lesson 16 of second form Latin. This lesson is so easy, I'm not even going to teach it. It's so simple. You don't need me. I'll see you in lesson 17. Yeah. You want me to teach it? All right. Let's go ahead and do a recitation. Surgite, recitemus. Our personal endings. OST, mus tis int, bom bos bot, bomus botus bont, bo bis bit, bimus bitus bunt. Isti eat, imus istis erunt. Iram eras erat, iramus eras erant. Iro ris erit, irimus eritus erint, and dent, always in the active. Let's conjugate monio, monere, monui, monitu. Second conjugation. Ready? Monio, mones, monate, monemus, monatus, monet. Monibam, monibas, monibat, monibamus, monibatus, monibant, monibo, monibis, monibit, monibimus, monibitus, monibunt. Now let's do third conjugation. Let's just skip the perfect system. Let's do third conjugation present system. Rego, regere. Ready? Rego, regis, regit, regimus, regitus, regunt. Regibam, regibas, regibat, regibamus, regibatus, regibant. Regam, reges, regate, regimus, regatus, regent. Now let's do fourth conjugation. Audio, audire. Ready? Audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditus, audiunt. Audiabam, audiabas, audiabat, audiabamus, audiabatus, audiabant. Audiam, audies, audiate, audiemus, audietus, audient. Remember, that first and second conjugation, they're kind of their own thing. Standard building process, go to second principal part, chop off the RE, adjectives, markers, and endings. Third and fourth, you have to use memory tricks and remember a lot of vowel changes, but they're both really similar to each other, just like first and second are. So where the memory tricks in third conjugation are o, is, ebam, ebas, and ames, in fourth, it's eo, is, iabam, iabas, and then iam, ias for fourth conjugation. Well done. Let's recite our second declension masculine er-ir variants, puer and vir. Ready? Puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero, pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. Now vir, vir, viri, viro, virum, viro, viri, virorum, viris, viros, viris. Let's recite pars, partis, our third declension I stem. Ready? Pars. Pars, partis, parti, partem, parte, partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. Now the neuter third I stem, mare. Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie, with that I. Maria, marium, maribus, maria, and maribus. Now a type 2 third declension adjective, fortis, forte. It mostly follows third I stem. Ready? Fortis, forte. Fortis, fortis, forti, fortem, forti. Fortes, fortium, fortibus, fortes, fortibus. Now the neuters, most exactly following mare. Forte, fortis, forti, forte, forti. Fortia, fortium, fortibus, fortia, fortibus. Well done. All right, now let's recite our personal pronouns beginning with ego. Ready? Ego me, mihi, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. Tu, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Now there's a third person set of personal pronouns. We just didn't learn them in this unit. We'll learn them again later. We'll learn them for the first time later. But there's 30 of them. It kind of acts like an adjective, so we'll deal with that later. All right, let's end our recitation with our noun endings. Ready? A, arum, is, as, is, us, o, orum, is, os, is, e, o, a, orum, is, a, is. Third, blank, is, ace, ibus, ace, ibus, blank, is, blank, a, ibus, a, ibus. Fourth, us, ui, us, ibus, ibus. And fifth, ace, ace, arum, abus, ace, abus. Well done. Good recitation. Sedete? Again, welcome to lesson 16. Let's look at our Latin saying. Festina lente, make haste slowly. Festina lente, make haste slowly. As you can see, this lesson today is on adverbs. And again, like I said before, is a very simple lesson. I almost don't need to teach it, but I will. So, lesson 16, making adverbs. How do we make them? In English, adverbs are usually made with an ly. So you take an adjective like quick, and you add an ly onto it, and you get quickly. As you know, adverbs modify verbs, mostly. They can modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs even, but they mostly modify the action of a verb. So, the man is running. How is he running? Quickly. It modifies the type of action he's doing. But that's not always the case in English. It's not always the case you take an adjective and add an ly. Similarly in Latin. You take an adjective in Latin, you find the stem of the adjective, and you add an ending. That's basically how the adverbs are made. So let's look at the details. First, the type 1 adjectives from the first and second declension. We have altus, alta, altum, latus, lata, latum, liber, libera, liberum, pulcher, pulchra, pulchrum, asper, aspera, asperum, miser, misera, miserum, multus, multa, multum. So these are all old vocab words. You already know them. The adverbs from these adjective forms are made very simply. You find the stem of the adjective, which is really easy to find. You go to the second lexical form, whatever it is, and chop off the ending. Don't worry about whether it's feminine or neuter. Don't worry about that. Just go to the second lexical form or the second dictionary form. By that I mean whatever form you would see if you looked up altus, alta, altum in a dictionary, you'd find altus, alta, altum. So you go to alta, chop off the ending, you have alt, that's your stem. To that, to type 1 adjectives, you add an e. And so, in order to do something, to talk deeply would be to talk alte. And to read widely would be to read latte. So you just take the stem of the adjective and you add an e. Now, skip down over the longus and laetus section and look at third declension adjectives. So this is brevis, breve, gravis, fortes, fideles, etc. With these, again, you find the stem, which is the same process. You go to the second lexical form, you chop off the ending. In this case, it's a neuter form, but that doesn't matter. It's a second lexical form, whatever it is. So brevis, breve. So you take breve, chop off the e, you have brev, that's your stem. To most third declension, type 2 adjectives, in order to make the adverb, you add an iter, I-T-E-R. And so we get breviter for shortly, and graviter for heavily, and fortiter for bravely. But this is not the only way to build an adverb. Just like in English, ly is not the only way to have an adverb. So look at multus. it's the last word in the top section of the words given here. Multus, multa, multum, much or many in the adjective form. You'll see that the form as an adverb is actually just the neuter accusative singular multum. Okay, so that's not really any regular form, or it's just there are fewer of these than there are of the other ones that just take the E on the stem. So you don't really do anything to the multus, multa, multum. You just use that neuter accusative singular form as an adverb. Now you may ask, well, that looks a whole lot like an adjective in the neuter nominative, so how am I going to tell when it's being used as an adverb? Great question. I've got a 3-word answer for you. Context, context, context. One more thing. Context. The final definition of a word and its usage is always determined ultimately by the words it's surrounded by. So usually adverbs occur right next to a verb, just after, just before. And so you'll usually notice that it's being used as an adverb. Also, here's another tag. If there's no other neuter nominative singular forms to match that adjective, it can't be an adjective, so it's going to have to be doing some other job. Adjectives don't just dangle out there by themselves. So that's 2 ways you could tell. But often the context is so specific that you won't have any problems with it. Now, also, just like in type 1 adjectives where we have most of them take the E, but some take this neuter accusative, that's the same for third declension or type 2 adjectives. Most of them take the E ter on top of the stem, like breviter and graviter and fortiter, but not all of them. Some of them, like facilis, just use that neuter accusative form. Now, this is not another option. So you couldn't take brevis, breve, and just say, breve, that's my adverb. No, because brevis takes the E-ter. It's just some adjectives take the E-ter and some don't. So facilis does not. You don't get faciliter, you just get facile. It's a neuter accusative form, just like the exception with multus. So just several options on how to build an adverb. Remember, adverbs are just going to modify the action of a verb. They're just going to make it quickly or slowly or highly, or deeply. So those types of things. Now, this looks like a really long vocabulary list, but it's really not that bad. You've already seen all of these. You have not seen the middle 4. These are the only new ones. Longus, longa, longum, long. The adverb, of course, would be longe. So you go to longus, longa, chop off the A, you get long, add the E. That's your adverb for far or by far, not longly. All right. Laetus, laeta, laetum for happy. Late, L-A-E-T, is your stem from the second lexical form, chopping off the A, add the E, and you get lete, happily. Lentus, lenta, lentum for slow. What's the stem of this one? That's right, it's lent. So you add the E, you get lente, slowly. I like to say it like that. Certus, certa, certum for certain. Cert, C-E-R-T, is your stem. From the second lexical form, chopping off the A, you add the E and you get certe. Okay, this concludes lesson 16. Remember, these are adverbs. They modify nouns. They modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. So like I said, easy lesson, kind of a break after third IOs. I'll see you in the next lesson. Salvete amici Latini, and welcome to Second Form Latin. This is the unit review for Unit 3. This lesson we're going to be focusing on the second principal part, also known as the infinitive, translated to verb, with whatever verb you're dealing with. But before we get into all that, let's do a recitation. Surgite, recitemus, our tense endings. Ost, mus tes ent, bom bas bot, bomus botus bont, bo bis bit, bimus bitus bunt. Let's stop there. And let's now do the present system of the first conjugation using amo, amare, amavi, amatus. Ready? Amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatus, amat. Amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamus, amabatus, amabant. Amabo, amabis, amabit. Amabimus, amabitus, amabunt. Now let's do just the present system of the second conjugation verb, moneo, monere, monui, monotus. Ready? Moneo, mones, monate, monemus, monatus, monent. Monebam, monebas, monebat, monebamus, monebatus, monebant. Monebo, monebis, monebit. Monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. Well done. Now, that was the first 2 conjugations. They are very similar to each other. They both follow a standard building process in the present system. Second principal part, chop off the RE, add your tense markers and your endings, so they're very much like each other. Now we're moving into the third and fourth world. They have vowel changes. So you can't use that standard building process. You have to use memory tricks. The memory tricks are ois, ebamabas, ames. And for the fourth, eo is, iabam iabas, iam ies. Let's conjugate rego, regere, rexi, rectus. Ready? Go. Rego, regis, regit, regimus, regitus, regunt. Regibam, regibas, regibat, regibamus, regibatus, regibant. Regam, reges, regate, regemus, regatus, regent. Well done. Now the fourth conjugation, very similar memory tricks to the third. Here we go. Audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditus, audiunt. Good. Audiabam, audiabas, audiabat, audiabamus, audiabatus, audiabant. Audiam, audies, audiate, audiemus, audietus, audient. Very good. So that's the whole present system for all four conjugations. Oh, we forgot third io. Let's do third io real quick. Let's do capio, capere. Ready? Capio, capis, capit, capimus, capitus, capiunt. Wait a second. Capiunt? Oh, that's right. Third ios, they look like third, but they act like fourth. That's right. So this is correct. Let's begin again. Capio, capis, capit, capimus, capitus, capiunt. Capiabam, capiabas, because that's fourth, right? Capiabat, capiabamus, capiabatus, capiabant, capiam, capies, capiate, capiemus, capiatus, capient. Well done. Those third ios, they look like third in their principal parts, particularly that infinitive, but they behave like fourth conjugation verbs. They decline, they conjugate that way. All their forms look that way. All right, let's end this verb section by conjugating the present system forms of sum. Sum as, sumus est sunt. Eram eras erat, eramus eratus erant. Ero eris erit, erimus eritus erunt. Let's decline ager, agree, second declension masculine er variant. Ager, agree, agro, agrum, agro, agree, agorum, agris, agros, agris. Well done. Now let's decline integer, integra, integrum. Here we go. Integer, integra, integrum, integree, integrate, integree, integro, integrate, integro, integrum, integram, integrum, integro, integra with a macron, integro. Now the plurals, integree, integrate, integra, integrum, integram, integorum, integris, 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 integros, integras, integra, integris, integris, integris. Well done. Now let's conjugate decline, pars, partis, and mare, maris. These are third declension I stems. Here we go. Pars, partis, parti, partim, parte, partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. That was third I stem masculine, feminine. Let's do third I stem neuter, mare, maris. Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie, maria, marium, maribus, maria, maribus. Well done. Now let's decline a type 2 third declension adjective that mostly follows third I stem forms. Here we go. How about fortis, forte? Let's do that. Ready? Masculine, feminine side first. Fortis, fortis, forti, fortem, forti, with an I, right? Fortes, fortium, fortibus, fortes, fortibus. Now the neuter side will follow completely mare. Exactly the same. Forte, fortis, forti, forte, forti, fortia, fortium, fortibus, fortia, fortibus. Well done. Now, let's decline our personal pronouns beginning with the first person ego. Ready? Ego me, miki, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. Tu, tui, tibi, te, te. These are second persons. Vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Don't forget those double genitives in the plural, and also that neither of those genitives, either singular or plural, can communicate possession. That's what we have possessive pronouns for. Let's recite our Latin sayings. In hoc signo vinces. In hoc signo vinces. Aut viam, in veniam aut faciam. Tempus fugit. Festina lente. Before we look at our review vocabulary, let's discuss principal parts. Since you now know that first and second conjugation in the present system particularly are a lot alike, following the same building processes, and third and fourth are also very much alike, it is now crucial for you to be able to recognize what conjugation a verb is in. If you see a verb and you think it's second conjugation, you're going to be giving it bo bis bit in the future. But if it's not really second and it's third, then there's going to be ames there. So in a Latin text, when you come across a word that just has an et for an ending, you got to know what conjugation you're dealing with. If you're dealing with second conjugation, that's a present tense. If you're dealing with third, it's future. So these are crucial issues to be able to recognize what conjugation you're dealing with. So there's a lot of identification markers and they primarily focus on the second principal part, also known as the infinitive. In a dictionary, the infinitive is the word translated to give the gloss meaning for a verb. So, for instance, you look at voco, vocari, vocavi, vocatus in a dictionary or lexicon, you'll likely have voco, vocari, to call. That's the translation of the infinitive, the second principal part. The second principal part, again, is how you identify what conjugation that verb is in. So there's two easy ones. Here's the easy ones. Remember, there's 5 conjugations we're dealing with. First, second, third, and fourth, and third IO. Let's talk about first conjugation. This is the easiest one to recognize. The first conjugation has an A linking vowel in the second principal part. That is, if you chopped off the RE, the next vowel that's sitting there raw on the end of the verb is your linking vowel, and it's A. All verbs that have an A linking vowel in the second principal part are first conjugation. Okay, so that's easy. The other easy one is fourth conjugation. Fourth conjugation is also known as the I conjugation for good reason. The linking vowel in the second principal part of fourth conjugation verbs is always I. So audio, audire, shio, shire. It's always that long I after that RE. So you go to the second principal part, you chop off the RE, whatever vowel is sitting there, that's the one that you use to identify what conjugation the verb is in. So first and fourth are simple. First conjugation, no problem. A linking vowel, it's first conjugation. Fourth conjugation, no problem. You got that I linking vowel, it's fourth conjugation. Now it's second, third, and third IOs that are a little on the pesky side. Let's talk about second and third first. Let's begin by talking about second and third conjugation. Here we go. Second conjugation has an E in the second principal part, but so does third. They both have that E there. Now what's the difference? Well, there's 2 things I want to say. Thing number 1, second conjugation has a long E, and third conjugation has a short E. Now, a long vowel, a long E, will be long and strong and be able to stand up against tense markers and vowel variations, which is why the second conjugation is so regular. You conjugate moneo, you really just see that present stem the whole way through. This is not true with third. That short E in the third conjugation is short and it's weak and it gets picked on. So it doesn't get to play in all the reindeer games, and so there's a lot of vowel changes. O, E, and I take it over in the present, then it has to come back in the imperfect. A beats it in the future. There's all kinds of wacky stuff happening in the third conjugation present system because of that short E linking vowel. So while they do both have an E, the second conjugation has a long and strong E, and the third conjugation has a short E. Now this is identified in a lot of Latin texts, but not all of them, with a long mark over the E in the second conjugation. So you'll see moneo, monere, and that's why we pronounce it that way. But for third conjugations, there's no long marker because it's a short E. So you say, you're saying rego, regere, and you hear that short E there for third. Now, since not all Latin texts are really careful about those long marks, there's another way to identify second and third conjugations, and it's particularly with third. So let's just assume the long marks are gone. Both the second and third conjugations have an E in the second principal part after you chop off the RE, that linking vowel there. But the third conjugation does not have an E right behind the O. So while second conjugation is moneo, monere, there's an E in both of those principal parts. Moneo, monere, E in both places. That's classic second conjugation. Third, it's not that way. You do have an E in that second principal part, but it's missing in the first. So that's why all third conjugations look this way. Rego. There's no E there. It's not regeo. It's just rego. I'm not talking about the R. I'm not talking about the E between R and G. Not that E. The E right next to the O. It's not regeo. It's rego. Regere. And jungo. There's no E there. Jungere, but there's one over here. Then cedo and cedere. All third conjugation verbs are this way. Now, this is a very reliable rule. So if you cannot tell, based on the text you're dealing with, or say you're online and the person dealing with that website did not write the long E or the short E, don't worry about it. If you know what the principal parts are, if your verb has an E in the second principal part, but it does not have one in the first, that's a third conjugation verb. And second conjugation always has the E in both places. So that's a very reliable verb. Now, to third IOs. Third IOs, remember, they mostly behave like fourth conjugation verbs in their forms. But in the principal parts, it kind of looks like third because it has that short E in the second principal part. So you have capio, capri. So you got that short E there in the second principal part. But remember, these are easy to notice because you look at the first principal part, and it's not that there's a missing E, it's that you have an I there instead, which is why they're called third IOs. You know it's third because you're looking at the infinitive and seeing that short E. Well, it's a short E. It's got to be third conjugation. You're right until you look over the first conjugation and you see that it's not missing an E. There's an I there instead. So that short E in combination with that first principal part I make the third I stems behave like fourth conjugation. Now again, we're not going to go into it. Life's not fair. Third IOs look like third in their principal parts, but they follow fourth conjugation forms. Salvete amici latini, and welcome to the introduction for second form, Unit 4. Now, let me just recall where we have been before we go on to Unit 4, and just give a little preview before we get into it. In Unit 1 of second form, we covered some additional nounish things we had not told you about before. Second declension, masculine, ERI, ER variants, and third I stems, and things like this. In Unit 2, we covered a new part of speech, prepositions and pronouns. In Unit 3, we dealt primarily with the present system of two new conjugations, that being the third and the fourth. So now we have under our belt all the basic verb forms from first form, additional nounish things we hadn't told you about before, and new part of speech, and the whole present system. And now we're going to go into the whole perfect system of the indicative active verb. So this is a system you have actually already learned. You learned part of it with first and second conjugation. I'm a V, I'm a VC, I'm a V. I'm a Varam, I'm a Varas, I'm a Vero, I'm a Varis. That's the perfect system down there. It's built from the perfect stem, which is easy to find. You've already learned the perfect system of the first and second conjugations, and I got some really, really, really good news for you. The perfect system is completely regular across the conjugations. So first through fourth, including I stem, perfect tense follows the exact same rules. So, in a very real sense, though I say this a lot, you have already learned this, so this will not be difficult. Now there's one, this is coming, right? There's one little issue we need to consider, and that is the issue of principal parts. There are 4 principal parts for most verbs, and we need to learn all 4 of them for the third conjugation. And the bad news is, third conjugation does not have a regular way to do the principal parts. There's a big variety in third conjugation on what the perfect stem looks like and what the principal parts look like. So now, you're already kind of used to that even because in second conjugation, we said, here are the regular types of second conjugation principal parts, and there were 15 examples. So you get the idea that we not necessarily a regular second conjugation. There's all kinds of things you could expect even for second conjugation, although the variety in second conjugation is less than what you will see here in a third. So you really are going to see quite a bit of different forms for the principal parts for third and fourth conjugation. Now, as an added bonus, if you call right now, you can also receive a lesson on questions. So quiz, quid, who, what, when, where, how, those kinds of questions that you would ask, so we'll be able to formulate questions after we learn that lesson. And of course, they'll also make julienne fries. So that's Unit 4, the perfect system, the indicative active verb, honing mostly in on the third and fourth conjugations. But the first lesson, we'll deal with a review of those first 2 conjugations, perfect system, including sum. I'll see you there, and we will traipse through Unit 4 together. See you then. Salvete amici latini, and welcome to Second Form Latin, Lesson 17. This is the first lesson of Unit 4. We're going to be doing the perfect system of all 4 conjugations, including third IO. But we're going to start today with doing first and second conjugation and the perfect forms of sum. Now, we're going to do a truncated recitation today. I just mean shortened by truncated. So we're only going to do the present system of the first 4 conjugations and, of course, capio. So let's conjugate the present systems of amo, moneo, rego, and audio, and capio. That's our third IO verb. I'm just going to go straight through them. I'll say the name of the verb before we begin the next one, but we're just doing the present system. So, surgite, recitemus. Amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatus, amant. Amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamus, amabatus, amabant. Amabo, amabis, amabit, amabimus, amabitus, amabant. Now, second conjugation, very similar to first. Moneo, monere. Ready? Moneo, mones, monet, monemus, monetus, monet, monebom, monebos, monebot, monebomus, monebotus, monebot, moneboom, monebis, monebit, monebimus, monebitus, monebunt. Good. Now that's first and second. They're very similar to each other. Now we're going to do third and fourth. Memory tricks, vowel changes. You know that world. Let's begin with rego. Rego, regis, regit, regimus, regitus, regunt. Regibom, regibos, regibot, regibomus, regibotus, regibont. Regom, reges, regate, regimus, regatus, regent. Good. Now the fourth conjugation, very similar to those thirds. There's an I added to all the forms unless there's an I already there. Ready? Audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditus, audiunt. That's an irregularity. Audiabom, audiabos, audiabat, audiabomus, audiabatus, audiabont. Audiam, audies, audiate, audiemus, audietus, audient. Now for third ios, capio, capri. Now remember, third ios, they only have the one last vestige of their third conjugation is that second principal part, ere. The rest of them act like fourth conjugations. So third ios, they look like third, but they act like fourth. By act, I mean they conjugate like fourth. So let's do capio, capri. Ready? Capio, capis, capit, capimus, capitus, capiunt. Just like fourth. Capiabom, capiabos, capiabat, capiabamus, capiabatus, capiabont. Capiam, capies, capiate, capiemus, capietus, capient. Well done. Good recitation. Sedete. All right, there's no Latin saying for the day, so let's go ahead and get right into our forms. You'll just see, because you can see here, this is a review of the first and second conjugation, including the forms of sum. So we have, these words are formed from three pieces: the perfect stem, the linking vowel, start over. These verb forms are formed from three things: the perfect stem, the tense marker, and then the personal ending. So let's look at them backwards. Look at future perfect real quick. It's real obvious here. You have the perfect stem, amav, then the tense marker, which is eri mostly, and then your regular personal endings, ost, mus, descent. For the pluperfect, you same thing. Perfect stem, amav, then your tense marker, which here is era, and then your personal endings, mst, mus, descent. Now the perfect tense is somewhat of a different situation. You have the perfect stem, and then you just have a unique set of endings, which govern both the marker of the tense, because it's the only tense that uses these endings, and it's also the personal ending. So the personal unique endings there do double duty. But in any case, you have a perfect stem and you have the tense endings, which notice are the same for all three of these, including sum, which is supposed to be an irregular verb. Isit, imus itis erunt, iramaras erat, iramus ratus erant, ero ris erit, irimus eritus erindent, always in the active. Same thing for monio, for monui, and for fui. So they're the same. So the same endings. That's great. That's great news. Now let's talk about where you get, so the endings, you just got to memorize them, which you already know. I just went through them. Iramaras erat, ero ris erit, just got to know those. But where do you get that perfect stem? It's not from the second principal part. You get it from the third. So amo, amare, amavi. Chop off that I and you have a mav. That's where you get that perfect stem. Consider moneo. Moneo, monere, monui. Chop off that I, you have monu. Even sum. This even works for sum. Sum esse fui. Futurus. Take fui, chop off the I, you've got fu. And fu is all over this chart. Everywhere, no exceptions. Perfect system is completely regular across the conjugations, but there's one thing you got to remember. It is very tempting to think of the V in amavi as the marker for the perfect tense. No, this is not the case. Notice, even with second conjugation, it's tempting to think of that U as the second conjugation marker. Again, no. It is true that a lot of first conjugation verbs have the V in the perfect tense, but that's only because the perfect stem from the third principal part has a V, not the other way around. Consider do, dare, dedi, datus. Do, dare, dedi. There's no V there, but we still get our perfect stem from there. We pull dedi down, chop off the I, and we have dead, D-E-D. Consider sto, stare, steady. These are our four exceptions, right? Do, sto, juvo, and lavo. Sto, stare, steti, status. Pull down steti, we chop off the I. Now there's a T there, stet. So the V is not the marker, nor is the U. These just happen to be in the perfect system. If your third principal part was flibbity-gibbity, you take flibbity-gibbity down, you chop off the I, and flibbity-gibbet would be your perfect stem. So just whatever's in that third principal part, that's where that perfect stem comes from. technically you could argue that grammarians wrote these principal parts from these parts, so you could say it the other way. But in any case, the way you learn Latin now, you were given principal parts, and that's where you find your stems. Your present stem is found from the second principal part. Your perfect stem is found from the third principal part by removing the I. So that rule goes across the board. So, for example, let's conjugate in the perfect systems do and moneo, not moneo for warn or advise. We're going to do moneo for remain or stay. Here we go. Dedi, dedisti, dedit. Dedimus, dedistus, dederunt. Dederam, dederas, dederat. Dederamus, dederatus, dederant. Dedero, dederis, dederit. Dederimus, dederitus, dederintintent. Always in the active. Okay, that was an irregular first conjugation verb. We did not see the V or the U. It was a D. Again, that last letter is not the marker. It's just whatever your perfect stem you get from the third principal part. Removing the I, that's your perfect stem. Now let's do moneo, monere, monsi, monsus. Here we go. So monsi was your third principal part. Pull it down, chop off the I. You have mons, M-A-N-S. Let's conjugate. Monsi, monsisi, monsi, monsimus, monsisis, monserunt, monseram, monseras, monserat, monseramus, monseratus, monserant, monsero, monseris, monserit, monserimus, monseritus, monser, intendent. Always in the active. So again, here we have an S, but that's irrelevant. Whatever you have in that third principal part by removing the I, that's your perfect stem, and you'll be seen all over the perfect system, which again is completely regular across the conjugations, 1 through 4, including third ios. This is really handy. So what I just told you about taking your perfect stem and add I, east, to eat, take your perfect stem, add a ram, ras, rat, take your perfect stem, add a ro, ris, rit, that standard process holds for all 4 conjugations in the perfect system. So it's really, really handy. Perfect system is completely regular. So we say the perfect system is perfectly formed and perfectly regular. That helps. Let's look at over our Latin sayings real quick underneath the grammar forms. Errare est humanum. Errare est humanum. Nunc aut numquam. I love saying it like that. You have to say it like you're from Mordor or something. Nunc aut numquam. Semper fidelis. Fortes fortuna juvat. Ora et labora. Veni vidi vici. Veni vidi vici. Okay, let's look at the review words across on the facing page 55. Whew, there's a lot of them. Let's go ahead and go through all of them. It'd be good to hear them again. Note the numbers just after the verbs, and most of them means that is a regular principal parts from that conjugation. So consider accuso. Accuso, with the number 1 there, says it's a regular first conjugation verb, so it's accuso, accusare, accusavi, accusatus. That's it. Number 2, consider appareo. It's like number 5 down. It has a little 2 next to it. It means it's regular second conjugation. By regular, I mean it's going to follow moneo or habeo. All right, so appareo, apparere, apparui, apparatus. Regular. Now you notice you don't have any of those numbers for third and fourth, do you? That you can have them for fourth. Fourth conjugation is fairly regular in its principal parts, but there's none for third. All right, let's go through this list, saying the Latin and the English. Accuso, to accuse. Adoro, to adore. Ambulo, to walk. Amo, to love or like. Appareo, to appear. Appello, to address. Ardeo, ardere, arsi, arsus, to burn or be on fire. We get the word arsonist from this. Aro, to plow. Caveo, cavere, gavi, gautus, to beware of or to guard against. Celo, to hide. Clamo, to shout. Creo, to create. Notice that's a first conjugation verb, so it's creo, creare, creavi, creatus. Culpo, culpare, culpavi, culpatus, to blame. Debeo, to owe or ought. Delecto, to delight or please. Demonstro, to show or to point out. Dodare dedidatus, to give. Docio, docere, docui doctus, to teach. Dubito, to doubt. Ero, to err, wonder. Exploro, to explore. That's a hard one. Gaudeo, gaudere, in the 2 irregular forms, to rejoice. Habeo, to have. Habito, to live in or dwell. Eubeo, eubere, usi, usus, to order. Judico, regular first conjugation verb, to judge or consider. Juvo, juvare, juviutus, and we've talked about this many times, to help. Laboro, I work. Laudo, to praise. Lavo, lavare, lavi, lautus, to wash. Libero, to free or to set free. Maneo, manere, mansi, mansus, to remain or stay. Moneo, monere, monui, monitus, to warn or advise. Moveo, movere, movi, motus, to move. And muto, mutare, mutavi, mutatus, to change. Okay, very good. So that was our first column. Let's do the next one. Last column on page 55. Ready? Naro, to tell. Nato, to swim. Navigo, to sail. Nego, to deny. Nuncio, to report. Occupo, to seize. Oppunio, to attack. Opto, to desire or wish. Oro, to speak or pray. Paro, to prepare. Perturbo, to disturb. Porto, to carry. Prohibeo, to prevent. Pugno, to fight. Puto, to think. Respondeo, respondere, respondi. Notice the D there. Could be anything, but the third principal part says that the perfect stem is respond. Responsus, to respond. Rogo, to ask. Saluto, to greet. Sedeo, sedere, sedi, sessus, to sit. What conjugation is that? Good, it's second. You can tell from that long E in the infinitive, or that both the infinitive and the first principal part have an E right before their ending. Well done. Servo, to guard or keep. Specto, to look at. Spero, to hope. Sto stare steady status, to stand. Supero, to overcome. Taceo, to be silent. Tempto, to tempt. Teneo, tenere, tenui tentus, to hold is my favorite English derivative from this word. People that are tenacious, they hold on. Like badgers, once they bite, they don't let go. Tereo, to frighten. Timeo, timere, timui, to fear, to be afraid of. Valeo, valere, valui, to be strong or to be well. Video, vedere, vidi visus, to see. Voco, to call. Volo, to fly. That seems a weird one, isn't it? But liquids that are volatile, these are liquids that are flammable. Well, not always flammable. It means volatile liquid will go to gas soon. So a perfume is volatile. The gas of a perfume, the gas of that liquid will go into the air quickly. Vulnero, to wound. And the last one, sumese, fui futurus, the irregular verb to be. So lesson 17 covers the perfect system of first and second conjugations in sum. And really, we reviewed principal parts as well and set the stage for learning the incredibly perfect system. I'll see you in lesson 18. Salvete amici Latini, and welcome to Second Form Latin lesson 18. Today we're going to be studying the third conjugation, the perfect system. But before we do that, let's do our recitation. Surgite, recitemus. Our second declension masculine ER-IR variants, beginning with puer. Ready? Puer, pueri, puero, puerum, puero, pueri, puerorum, pueris, pueros, pueris. Ager, agree. Ager, agree, agro, agrum, agro. Agree, agrorum, agrees, agros, agrees. Vir, vir, viri, viro, virum, viro. Viri, virorum, viris, viros, viris. Well done. Now let's recite integer, integra, integrum. This is a type 1, first and second declension adjective of the ER variety. Here we go. Integer, integra, integrum. Integree, integrate, integree. Integro, integrate, integro. Integrum, integram, integrum. Integro, integra with the macron, integro. Now the plural side. Integree, integrate, integra. Integrorum, integram, integorum. Integris, integris, integris. Integros, integras, integra. Integris, integris, integris. Well done. Now let's recite miser. Miser is a type 1, first and second declension adjective, also of the ER variety, but this one does not have a stem change. So miser, misera, miserum, they're all the same. Miser, misera, miserum. Here we go. Miser, misera, miserum. Miseri, misere, miseri. Misero, misere, misero. Miserum, misera, miserum. Misero, misera, misero. Plurals. Miseri, misere, misera. Miseror, miserar, miserorum. Miseris, miseris, miseris. Miseros, miseras, misera. Miseris, miseris, miseris. Well done. I was looking around to demonstrate. Hopefully this is very easy for you. So easy you could look at your watch, look around the room, and maybe even fall asleep, but I hope that's not the case. Well done. So that's miser, miser, miser. Now let's recite third declension I stem nouns, pars partis and mare maris. Here we go. Pars partis is the masculine feminine one. Pars partis. Pars partis, parti, partim, parte. Partes, partium, partibus, partes, partibus. And so that's the strange form, the genitive plural. Now let's do mare. It's third I stem neuter. Ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. And this is really strange. We have an ablative with an I. Then maria, marium, maribus, maria, maribus. Well done with third I stem nouns. Now, brevis, breve. This is a type 2 third declension adjective that follows loosely I stems, and the neuter follows mare perfectly. Remember, brevis, breve, these are lexical forms. Each of them is the nominative singular of a different gender chart. So brevis is the nominative singular of the masculine feminine chart. Breve is the nominative singular of the neuter chart. Let's begin. Ready? Brevis, 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 brevi, brevim, brevi. Notice the ablative singular there. Breves, brevium, brevibus, breves, brevibus. So while brevis on the masculine feminine side does have the IUM in the genitive plural, it also has this ablative singular I. So it's sort of been infected by the neuter. Now let's do a third neuter here, mare. Breve. It follows mare perfectly. Ready? Mare, maris, marie, mare, marie. Oh, I'm doing mare. Sheesh. Okay, let's do brevis. I'm sorry, breve. Ready? Breve, brevis, brevi, breve, brevi. Again with the I. Brevia, brevium, brevibus, brevia, brevibus. Finally got it right. I hope you did better than me. Let's continue with our personal pronouns, first and second person, beginning with ego. Ready? Ego mei, miki, me, nos, nostri, nostrum, nobis, nos, nobis. Now second person, tu, tui, tibi, te, vos, vestri, vestrum, vobis, vos, vobis. Real quick, let's decline the meanings of those pronouns, beginning with ego. Ready? I, of me, to or for me, direct object, in, by, with, from me. We, of us, to or for us, direct object, in, by, with, from us. You, of you, to or for you, direct object, in, by, with, from you. And, y'all, let's just say you. You, of you, to or for you, direct object, in, by, with, from you. Well done. Let's continue our recitation by reciting the prepositions in the accusative. Ready? Remember, to the tune of Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread. Ready? Ad ante apud, in inter ob, per post propter, sub et trans. And of course, circum contra juxta. Right? Sort of like, and many more. Well done. Again, it's lesson 18, doing third conjugation perfect system. Let's look at our Latin saying for the day. Magister dixit. The master has spoken. Magister dixit. This is from now on going to be the saying for all our lessons, since I'm the magister and I have spoken. No, not really. This magister dixit, you see, we're using the third principal part of dico, and it's just the simple past. I taught. That's it. So the teacher has spoken. Now, the third conjugation perfect system, I have a lot of good news for. Actually, I have a little good news and a little bad news. Good news is the perfect system of the third conjugation is very regular. It follows the patterns from the first and second conjugation that you've already learned. This is really handy because the process you've learned about where to get the stem, what endings to add, same. So you're not going to have any problems with that. The minorly bad news, and it's really not that, the news is not really that bad, is that the principal parts of the third conjugation, there's not really one set pattern. There are some patterns throughout the third, things that you'll see that will look normally like third to you, but this is just a sense for the third conjugation. Mostly the principal parts are irregular with third. There is one thing that is consistent, and that is in third conjugation, there's an E linking vowel in the second principal part, but there's not an E linking vowel in the first. So we get rego, there's no E there, and then there's regere, and there is an E there. And this is interesting because it really helps us tell the third conjugation from the second really clearly. Second conjugation has a linking vowel of E in both the first and second principal parts. So we have moneo, monere. So there they are, E in both places. Doceo, docere, both places. Second conjugation is always like that. The third, while the E is also in the second principal part in the third, it's missing from the first. And also remember, the E linking vowel in that third conjugation there is a short vowel, which really is the cause of all of our problems in the third, in the present system. Because remember, we get that present system from that present stem from the second principal part, chopping off the RE. And since that E is a weak short E, then it tends to change and get smashed and leave and get all sorts of messy things happen. That's why we have the think I, ebom, ames in the present system. But it's most consistent to recognize third conjugation if you remember that there's an E in the second principal part, but there's not one in the first. And I'm talking about linking vowel E's, not in the root. So the pattern you'll normally see, and this is going to be our example verb, is rego, regere, rexi, rectu. So notice I'm saying rego, regere, not rego, regere, because that E is not long in the second principal part. So it's rego, regere, rexi, rectus. Let's recite the perfect system of the third conjugation rego. Notice we've gone to the third principal part. We've chopped off the I. We have rex. To that, we add our regular endings. E is the id, imus is serunt. E is the id, imus is the serunt. Iram rasarat. Iramus rotasarat. Iro resarit. Irimus rotasarit. Here we go. Rexi, rexisti, reximus, rexistus, rexerunt. Rexeram, rexeras, rexerat, rexeramus, rexeratus, rexerant. Rexero, rexeris, rexerit, rexerimus, rexeritus, rexerintendent. Always in the active. Very good. So this is very regular. Perfect system is just like moneo. We used to take moneo, monere, monui, chop off the I, we have monu. We'd add these same endings. Same thing for the first conjugation. Voco, vocari, vocavi. We pull down the vocavi, chop off the I, we have vocav. And to that we add these same endings. I see it, aram, ras, rad, ro, risarit, to that perfect stem. So the perfect stem is actually, the perfect system as a whole is completely regular. In fact, if I drew the conjugation, if I drew all the indicative active conjugation forms up for you, chop them in half so that the present system would be up here and the perfect system would be down here, the conjugations are across in columns here, then you would see that first and second conjugation are very much like each other in the present system. Third and fourth conjugation are very much like each other in the present system. But down below in the perfect system, all the conjugations are the same. They all take the third principal part, you chop off the I, add those tense marks and endings, just like first and second conjugations. Third is no exception. Third follows those rules as well. Let's look at our vocabulary and go through these real quick. We were very kind to you this week in that we only chose third conjugation verbs that have an X to ending the perfect stems. This is really handy. The only exception is vinco at the bottom, but you already know this word from vidi vidi vici. Veni vidi vici. I conquered the vici. The last word in that saying is from vinco here for conquering. Here we go. Rego, regere, rexi, rectus, to rule. Dico, dicere, dixi, dictus, to say, talk, or tell. Duco, ducere, duxi, ductus, to lead. Figo, figere, fixi, fictus, to fix or to fasten. Jungo, jungere, junxi, junctus. I love this one, to join or to connect. I think this word is my lore. This is my linguistic lore, so you can take it or leave it. But I think this is probably where we got the term jungle. In a jungle, the thing that marks a jungle is that all the vegetation is connected to all the other vegetation because there's so much water, so much warmth, and so much nutrients just flying around the ecosystem that there's plenty of time to grow like crazy. And so if you want to go through a jungle where there's no path, you usually end up having to take a machete with you to hack through all the connecting vines and trees and grasses and whatnot. So I think it's probably where we got that word. I've heard recently that the word jungle is seen as derogatory as for people that live near jungles. They don't like that word. There's another word. I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, I just thought I'd pass that along. All right, struo, struere, struxi, structus for to build or construct. And you see the STRU even in the word construct, to build together, literally is what that word means. Traho, trahere, troxy, tractus, to drag or to haul. Veho, vere, vexi, vectus, to convey or to transport. Of course, vehicle is an obvious one for this. Vivo, vivere, vixi, victus, to live or to be alive. And vinco, vincere, vici, victus, to conquer. The victor. Or even, if I convince you, then I have, in a sense, conquered your idea, and you've come along to my way of thinking. I want to remind you of the translations for these different tenses so you can remember. Remember, the type of time that these tenses reference is, perfect tense references simple or completed past action. So, I verbed, I have verbed, or I did verb. Simple past. It's not ongoing. There's nothing special about it. It's just basic past. What did you do yesterday? I studied. What about the day? What did you do 5 minutes ago? I ate. I married. I mowed. Just simple stuff. So I have verbed, I have verbed, or I did verb. That's the perfect tense. The pluperfect tense is a past. So it's two events, both occurring in the past, one before the other. So before I graduated from college, I had graduated from high school. Two events, but they're in sequence, and they're both in the past. So it's the past. Before I graduated from college, I had graduated from high school. So it's that hard had. Perfect tense has the soft have. It's to have, the perfect tense, completed past action. I have verbed But in the pluperfect, it's the harder had. I had verb. Just remember that just helps you. Have, had, and then will have. This is the future past. So we have ongoing action in the past with the imperfect. We have simple past with the perfect. We have past past with the pluperfect. And here we have future past. Two events, both occurring in the future, one before the other. So of these two events, I will say, before I have 7 kids, I will have had 6. Right, just by definition of counting kids, right? So before I have 7 kids, I will have had 6. And so these events, both of them in the future, but this one occurs in the past of this guy here. So this is in a kind of a relative past of this event. So they're in sequence. This one occurs first and this one occurs second. Just like back here, remember this one occurs first and this one occurs second. I always refer to the second event, right? I say, before I graduated from college, I will have graduated from, no, before I graduated from college, I had graduated from high school. Same thing over here. I'm going to refer to this event first. Before I have 7 kids, I will have had 6. All right, so those are the meanings of those tenses. So, verbed, had verbed, will have verbed. And remember, the perfect tense has 3 ways to translate it in English. We have 3 ways: the verbed, the have or has verbed, and the did verb, which is really similar to the present tense. Present tense also has 3 ways to translate it in English. It has the simple, I verb. It has the ongoing, I am verbing, or the emphatic verb, the emphatic present, I did verb, I do verb. So those tenses kind of, they have a lot of similarities. They both name their systems. Present tense names its system, the present system. Perfect tense names its system, the perfect system. They both have 3 ways to translate, and they both start with P. That helps. Okay, this concludes lesson 18. Remember, this is the third conjugation perfect system. It's completely regular, follows all the rules for perfect system that you've learned before from the first and second conjugation. You find the perfect stem from the third principal part, chopping off the I, and we've only chosen vocabulary words that whose perfect stem ends in X. Just to be kind to you, of course, vinco is an exception. We have vici there, but you know that one already. So remember, third conjugation has irregular principal parts, a short E in the second principal part, which causes a lot of problems, but the third principal part is strong, just like first and second conjugations. So I'll see you in the next lesson where we're going to study fourth conjugation, audio. I'll see you there.